everyone, welcome to another exciting commentary podcast. I am Captain Logan, and with me is the indestructible Dan Torrey.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
And the invincible Browncoat Eric.
Soon to be Sinister, or Superior, I guess.
Boo.
And I am Captain Logan.
Today, Captain, my Captain.
Today, we are doing a long-awaited commentary on Marvel's The Avengers. Lots and lots of folks lately have been asking us to do this. We finally are getting it done, and pulled together a couple of folks for this because Eric and Dan both really wanted to talk to me about this one, and three is sometimes kind of weird on a commentary, but lots of stuff to talk about on Avengers, and these are both guys that really know their Marvel Cinematic stuff, and I've done commentaries on Marvel Cinematic stuff with both of these guys, so I felt like it was only right to have all three of us on Avengers. Dan, of course, is our resident Thor guy and Hulk guy, and knows, I think, maybe even a little bit more than about Captain America than I do. And then and then of course Eric is our resident Iron Man guy. And Eric, we haven't done Iron Man 3 yet.
No, but, I keep wanting to. It's my favorite superhero movie.
We'll do that soon after.
Much to everyone else's chagrin.
We'll try to do that sometime soon after Avengers. I was waiting on it because Avengers informs it so much.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I'm super excited to do this. And before we get started, let me mention, as always, if you have never listened to one of these before, then what we do is we talk about the film while we're watching it. It is both a commentary and a podcast simultaneously. So if you want to watch it along with us, get your Netflix
cast.
Or your DVD, your Blu-ray, however you want to watch it, ring it up, get it past all of the menus to timestamp 0, and you'll press play as soon as I say now. We'll all watch it together. For those of you that want to just listen to this without actually watching the film with us, you, of course, can do that. We will do our level best to provide plenty of context for what we're talking about. It is as much of a podcast as it is a commentary. We will discuss the film, but we'll do so while we're actually looking at the images. So, you guys, any kind of preamble you'd like to throw out before we get started?
No.
I really like Hulk in this movie.
That's great, Dan. I'm sure you'll have ample opportunities to tell us why.
That's my favorite thing about this movie. That's the only thing I want to say going in, because I don't know, I feel like the film has already gotten enough hype and talk about among the community of people that we discuss things in. It's pretty well liked. I know some people that don't like it, but I'm not one of those people.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I'm sure lots of criticisms and things will pop up as we go along. Certainly, obviously, it's not a perfect film,
of course
but yes, I enjoy it. I'm excited to watch it and talk about it. How many times have you guys seen it?
At least a dozen.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, really? I think I've only seen it maybe 3 times.
I saw it like 3 times in the theater, just because, whenever someone wants to go see a comic book movie, they'll, the friend that likes comic books, you want to go see it with them. So I got asked to go see it a lot, and I've watched it a lot on DVD since I bought it. So
well, I mean, it's been on DVD for 2 years?
yeah, it's been on a while.
Yeah. Yes, it is 2 years old, and I should probably mention too that lots of folks, this is one of the highest requested movies, of course, for Superhero Rewind, and I want to mention that will happen, as I do with so many things, just before the sequel comes out. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
So have you ever?
2 hours and 22 minutes. I always forget how long this movie is.
It feels shorter. Or at least I think of it as short. I don't know if it feels shorter when you watch it.
And yet, a great deal was cut out.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be over when it ended. In the theater, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, I hope there's more.
And there's almost not a single line in this movie that hasn't become some kind of a meme at this point.
That's true.
Well, we're living in that kind of day and age, right? Like, if a movie is popular enough...
Yep.
It's so cool that they took other MacGuffins from the Marvel Universe and made them Infinity Gems. That's one of my favorite adaptational changes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, tying all that stuff together. It's really cool.
Yeah, the Tesseract is now officially the Space Gem.
That is fun, although I wish they'd explain why it's a cube.
Yeah, fair enough.
None of the others are cubes.
Yeah, and
You
like
know,
the
when
one
I
in Thor: The
complained
Dark World.
about Tony Stark's arc reactor going from a circle to a triangle, you told me I was being dumb. And now you complain about circles to cubes?
It's not like you had 6 other ones that were this different shape, but just this
Yes,
one
I
is a
did. The
cube
triangle
now.
one was Mark 6. There were 5 other armors that had circles.
Oh, okay, but they sort of had a plot explanation. No, it is funny. I mean,
No, and that's how they treat it in the comics, so I don't really care. But Joss
so
Whedon hates the triangle. That's a point in this movie.
that staircase in space that we just saw. Now every time I watch this, I'm like, it leads to Thanos.
It does. And
I want to walk up that staircase. Well, I don't really, because then I'd probably be dead.
Oh man, I bet you when they start putting stuff at Disney that staircase is something you can walk up.
Dan, I can't look at a helicopter in anything Marvel anymore without going Thanos copter.
they better put that into the movies in some capacity. I like
And
that.
we also need someone to drop the cosmic cube and say, "Well, no use crying over spilled milk."
Yeah, exactly. Um, I like that we start with Shield on Earth here and like having it be militarized too, because Whedon, I've heard in interviews and stuff, say that he wanted this movie to feel like a war movie, and I think in some aspects it does, and I think that first shot there, you get a taste of what the movie's kind of gonna be like film wise and stuff. It's because the crux of like the story is kind of about militarization to some degree, especially with Shield and how they're making weapons out of the Tesseract and stuff.
Well, it's actually interesting because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is very informed by the Ultimates to some extent. Probably
Yes.
much less so than it would have been had it been made 10 years earlier, but it's actually in kind of defiance of the idea of the Ultimates. Like at the end of this movie, it's a distinct choice not to have a government funded and run superhero team.
Hmm.
I think it's amusing that one of Nick Fury's earliest lines mentions Phase 2. And then right after this movie, we're going to get Phase 2.
That's true.
When did they officially decide to call it phased or like call them phases?
I think it was just before this came out.
Okay.
I'm not sure, though. It is going to be really interesting going back through this after everything we've seen recently, because I haven't watched this since watching a lot of the stuff in Phase 2 and seeing, where Shield goes in Winter Soldier and all the stuff with Agents of Shield. It feels kind of surreal looking at original Coulson.
It does.
Just after all the stuff I've watched from Agents of Shield, this movie feels a lot older to me right now than it is, just because there's been so much continuity since it, and
Yeah.
that is not a thing you have in movies, right? Before Marvel Cinematic, because they make all these movies that are in the same universe. That like since this, between Avengers and the second Avengers movie, you've got all this continuity.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course.
well,
Yeah.
Winter Soldier just changed everything.
And
Um, so
importantly, I think this is probably Marvel's, in my opinion, best movie before Winter Soldier. I know, Eric, you said Iron Man 3 is one of your favorites, and I do like that movie, contrary to popular opinion, as you said. But personally, I think this is my favorite one before Winter Soldier.
well, I have a weird thing with this film. I am completely incapable of being critical of this film. Every time I watch it, it just in a way that nothing else has, it just feels like a comic book in a movie.
Hmm.
Um, and even just Captain America and Thor and Iron Man being together, like I can't be critical about this film. Like I know there are things wrong with this film, but there's just a pure joy that I get from this movie that can't I can't look at it critically.
Right.
That was definitely my experience with it the first time around, and honestly, I think the only reason I haven't gone back to it a whole lot is just because I've been busy enough the last couple of years. I haven't been going back to much of anything.
One of the best decisions that Joss Whedon never made was uh, adapting the first Avengers comic appearance where they fight Loki and casting Tom Hiddleston as the main villain in this movie. He's so good in this movie.
Now, a lot of fans would disagree with you. A lot of people don't like that we got the same villain that we had at the end of Thor, and a lot of people think that his plan makes no sense.
Well, it could be worse. It could be Superman, 5 movies, same villain 4 times.
I think his plan, like his motivations, make some sort of sense. I mean, like his whole thing in Thor was wanting to rule over a kingdom, and Loki's kind of a pathetic power grabbing kind of person. He wants power at all costs because he wants to overcompensate for his inadequacies. And ruling over humans seems like the next logical step after you try to rule over gods, right?
Well,
Well, yeah,
and it's
especially
kind of
because
nice. Oh,
he's kind of thrown out, and it's like, where do you go?
well, and
Yeah,
it's kind of
exactly.
nice that he's working for somebody. He is the bad of this movie, but even before you see Thanos, you know he's working for somebody else. So it's still setting up a greater threat while visiting a familiar threat.
Right. And importantly, too, I think Loki is working with Thanos for his own personal gain, but he's not like a henchman. You know, he's got like his own
Yeah,
motivations.
I wouldn't say working for Thanos as much as kind of working with Thanos until he doesn't have to anymore.
As much as anyone can work with Thanos.
But that's his hubris, right? Like he thinks he can make that work,
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Loki's the most arrogant guy on the planet.
and he uses people.
Oh,
So like Loki's the guy who would think that he could manipulate Thanos. Of course, we're saying all this not ever seeing them on screen together
right.
Right.
But
because he's actually really working with a guy who's working for Thanos.
yeah, but I think that speaks to how well Loki was developed in these movies, even in Thor. Like we have a good grasp on what his personality's like, where we're able to say, yeah, in that situation, that's what he'd do. I even think, putting aside our comic book baggage, I think Loki's
Yeah,
developed enough that we can say that about this version of him.
Well, and
I
I
agree with
think
you.
so much of Loki being developed is Hiddleston's performance. Like I feel like he understands this character on like I feel like he could say on set that's not something Loki would say. Like
Oh, I agree with you.
he's
Yes,
really dug into this role.
he relishes
I
it. You
love
can
it.
tell.
I love it when Nick Fury says, "You say peace, but I think you mean the other thing."
Hawkeye is one of my favorite Avengers characters, and my biggest problem with this movie is, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general, is how criminally underdeveloped he is in this movie, like, and
So
in the
so
rest of
far,
it. Like, I
yeah.
hope he gets a lot to do in Avengers 2, because they make him a Shield agent in this continuity, which is cool. I like that idea. And he's not in the Shield show at all. He's not in the Captain America movie, which is all about Shield, and he doesn't get anything to do in this movie.
He actually had a scene in Cap that got deleted.
Oh, really? I didn't hear about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he was sent to capture Cap, and there was going to be like a whole um standoff scene where like he was going to fake attack Cap and give Cap time to run away. But they
Oh,
couldn't do it because of scheduling.
see, but I
Jeremy
would have
Renner
thought
just had
that.
other stuff going on.
Right. I would have thought that like Hawkeye would have been involved in that plot, the plot of that movie, as Black Widow would have been. You know, like not just one scene.
Well,
Yeah,
I've
I would imagine that the issue there was just you'd have to spend so much time continuing to develop their relationship that you'd have another 20 minutes in that movie.
Right. Yeah.
I've told Cap before that I really wish that the after credits scene for Winter Soldier was just Hawkeye waking up and checking his answering machine, and it was just like, Hawkeye, Nick Fury's dead. Oh no, nope, nope, he's alive. Shield's been infiltrated by Hydra. Hey, when you get this, we really could use your help.
He was just on vacation to Disney World the whole time.
You got to get your plugs in somewhere.
There's a reason it's Disney World.
Yeah.
I like Jeremy Renner's casting. Of course, obviously he was cast before this, and I think he's likely to be a really cool character eventually. But he's mostly brainwashed or mind wiped or yeah, brainwashed. I'm gonna go with that first thing I said. Mind controlled this whole movie, and he's kind of got that Cyclops X2 thing going on where he gets a little bit shafted.
But I
Yeah.
think the thing that kind of works here is that they're playing off the idea that he was originally introduced as a villain, so they bring him in
Yeah,
here as a bad. Like it's
but you're not. Here's the thing, though. If you don't know that source material, and I didn't before I saw this, I didn't know anything about that character, and he's just not somebody I've really read about, at least prior to this. And like your general audience is not going to appreciate that.
no. Well, and didn't Joss Whedon tell a story about how like he wrote like a 250 page like first draft and there was nothing for Hawkeye to do in it,
Yeah.
but he promised him that in the second movie he'd give him a lot more.
That's the problem, is that you've got, you got six characters, you got to juggle them all, you got to give them all things to do. And I think it's difficult sometimes, looking at something like this and trying to, criticize it and analyze it when we're not really done yet. I mean, this, like, yeah, it's a standalone movie and there's a whole story here, but in some ways it is a little bit like trying to review issues or at least trades of a longer comic arc, where, like, a couple movies down the road, I mean, a couple Avengers movies down the road, we might look back at this and go, yeah, no, all the stuff with Hawkeye's fine because now I know who he is. I feel that way about stuff after Winter Soldier. I think this movie is a better movie after Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really hoping that Hawkeye gets more to do because, he's one of my favorite Avengers. But it's just a matter of, I was going to this movie not expecting that he would like be the main crux of the movie or anything. I expected Stark, Captain America and Thor to be the main focus, but I thought he'd at least get a little bit more to do.
Well, I when I saw the trailers and he wasn't in them a lot, I was like, I bet you he's the point of view guy. Like, I bet you he's the guy. Like, we're not seeing scenes because it's just him like being introduced to everybody. And then I was really surprised that wasn't what it was.
That's true. I love this introduction scene to Black Widow. This is one of the better scenes. The movie has a lot of good scenes, but I like this scene a lot. I think it's one of the better scenes in the movie.
I think it might be one of the most Whedon-y scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you've got the strong lady who looks like she's put in this compromising, precarious situation, but it was actually her plan the whole time.
And we get a chance to kind of, they don't come out and say it, but, we see a little bit of her Russian background here. She actually speaks it. Because Scarlett Johansson doesn't speak with a Russian accent, which I think kind of makes sense, because if she's a good enough spy, she would lose that, so she doesn't seem obviously Russian.
I have very much gotten over that. That's the thing I complained about when I reviewed Iron Man 2. I think mostly just because if that's the only thing you're looking at and you know that character, and also not just knowing that character, but like, it's sort of talked about. She's clearly supposed to be from Russia. You're like, well, how does that work? Why doesn't she have an accent? And I always kind of wish we'd had just like a throwaway line where it's like, yeah, she's assimilated in the culture, and it's easier for her to do her job if she doesn't use that accent. But now, I don't know. This is a very different character from the Black Widow I've read in the comics, and I like her as much or more.
I don't really know the Black Widow in the comics at all, except for the fact that she's basically shacked up with every male character in Marvel.
She has.
Most of what I've read of her has been older Daredevil stuff.
Oh, when her and Daredevil shared a book?
Yeah, when she was dating Matt Murdock for a while, and then later on she would like show up occasionally, and they would talk about the fact that they used to date, but then they would just work together.
Yeah, for a while the Daredevil book was called Daredevil Black Widow when they were living together.
Yeah, and it was almost a TV show starring David Bowie's wife.
Yes, there was.
There really? That's awesome.
Yeah, if you look up, you can find pictures.
Really creepy.
Sometimes you say things and I'm like, is that a joke? Am I supposed to laugh at that?
No, David Bowie's wife bought the rights.
But yeah, this stuff is really fun. When she's talking on the phone and she's like, I'm working, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
God, leave me alone, I'm working. I got him right where I want him. Coulson.
I've never seen anyone beat up people with a chair, either. Like, outside of professional
wrestling, not
to it. That wasn't, like, there's...
As soon as you said that, I was like, that I'm going to bring up wrestling right now, right?
I'm not talking about, like, the metal chairs from, like, the original Spider-Man movie where Macho Man Randy Savage is over the top.
You're going nowhere!
I got you for 3 minutes! Snap to a Slim Jim!
Playtime! What are you doing up there?
That's a nice costume. Did your boyfriend give it to you?
See, I love when commentaries for movies like this just evolve into me quoting the Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, and I was going to say quoting anything, but specifically those movies. I want to ask you guys a question before we get too far into this. At what point does the novelty of getting to see all these characters in the same movie wear off? And the reason I ask that is because now that we're well into phase 2, the newer movies, and we've had a lot of crossover and stuff, I still really am enjoying this movie, but it doesn't have the impact it did on me when I first saw it and was like, this is history in the making here.
See, I don't think the novelty's worn off yet. I think the novelty will wear off when it becomes much more commonplace that characters start showing up in each other's movies. Right now, it's mostly been uh, like Black Widow, who hasn't had her own movie. She's just been in other people's movies. But like when it becomes a regular thing, that like the Hulk is in Captain America 9 and Thor shows up in Iron Man 5, I think when that becomes a more common thing, I think it'll really wear off. Because I mean, when you
See,
think
what
about it, we haven't seen these guys together since this.
Yeah, but what I guess it's not even just like these characters all together. It's just like the idea that this is one universe, and I'm very used to seeing them cross. Like you're right. We haven't had a lot of like big ones yet, but Winter Soldier and Agents of Shield have kind of already diminished that novelty for me, because I guess it's not so
Another
much
reason
cruise
to dislike
crossing.
Agents of Shield.
It's not, but hear me out.
I
It's
know.
not so much people crossing as it is me thinking of these all as one ongoing story. It's not these. It's Shield. Like Winter Soldier feels like Shield 2.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think the novelty wears off after the credits of this movie roll. It's up to them to prove that it's a concept worth doing. They have to have a story. Like the
Oh,
Avengers 2.
absolutely.
The Avengers 2, like now that we've seen them all together, and I'm on board with this story in this movie. I like it. Um, but when we get to the second one, if they don't tell a good story and it's just the Avengers together fighting stuff, it's not going to do much for me.
No, that'll be awful. But I mean, I guess I'm not even saying that the movie is for me only riding on novelty. I like the story too. I do think that a lot of that at least some of what made me so giddy in the theater was getting to see all these characters together.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, and
But
I think
this
what
is
sorry.
sorry. This is just one of those things, and I've had this with a lot of things where I wish I could recapture the first time I saw it again.
I
Yeah.
think what's also hurt the novelty is that it's not a novelty anymore because everyone everywhere has decided they're going to make their thing like the Marvel movies. Everything is going to be an interconnected franchise now. The Ghostbusters, the
Star
Universal
Wars.
Monster movies, Star Wars, just Spider-Man, everything is trying to do this now, and so it does diminish it a little bit, but I think this is also the only place it's really working, so
So far, yeah. But I mean, you also can't blame people, some of these other franchises for wanting to try it. I mean, yeah, you can say, okay, they're just jumping on a bandwagon. At the same time, kind of an innovative thing to bring that comic book storytelling to movies.
absolutely. And well, and the just the idea of um every movie is kind of a sequel to the other movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like getting to see like 200, $300 million episodes of television.
This is a really good
Yeah.
scene, by the way. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
I think Mark Ruffalo is one of the most inspired choices in all of these
I'm
movies.
really bummed that we haven't seen him except for the after the credits scene in Iron Man 3. I'm really bummed that we haven't seen him anywhere in Phase 2.
He was the first person I thought, outside of people that are actually with Shield, that I thought would be the easiest for them to get for an episode of Agents of Shield.
Yeah.
I really hate that we haven't seen him yet.
Well, I mean, when
I
Shield was announced, I assumed that everybody would be stopping by for an episode here and there. I was like, oh yeah, Sweeps Week, Tony Stark shows up for an episode, and that's not the show it became at all. Um, so
Well, we're just lucky that Sam Jackson was willing to come into that show some, because if he hadn't been there for that finale last season,
well, I think Maria Hill helps a lot because she really has
so I'm
bounced
sorry,
all
I should have
around.
said spoiler alert before I said that, because I know some people haven't watched that, but
Yeah. Um, I'm with you on Mark Ruffalo. I think he's great. I liked Edward Norton and Eric Bana as Banner, the two pre-filmed incarnations of Bruce Banner outside of what was done on the TV show with Lou Ferrigno back in the day. But I think Ruffalo's my favorite just in how he was written in this movie. Like that scene that we were just watching where he was introduced. The Norton movie is very kind of dark and it has levity, but it doesn't always come from Banner. I like that this Banner has a little bit of a sense of humor and he can joke, and that obviously comes from Whedon's writing. He likes to do that kind of thing. Like we
And
saw.
I don't know why, but I just buy him more as a scientist.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Well, Edward Norton's a little bland in that movie. And it's a little bit the script's fault, but like there he doesn't really dig into it in the way that Mark Ruffalo does here.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
I
and
think
they're almost different versions. Like he's playing the much more tragic like TV show version.
he is. And one of the things that I like about Edward Norton, though, over any of the other casting choices, is he is the not that this necessarily like makes up for anything. I like Ruffalo better, but Norton is the spitting image of Bruce Banner from the comics. He is right off the page. He looks exactly like him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Ruffalo's an interesting choice because he kind of has his own look. You don't immediately look at him and think Bruce Banner.
Right.
I guess I just wish that we had been able to start with him. Obviously, just looking at this in hindsight, because yeah, I like Ed Norton too, but they're such different versions. It's almost like you're looking at an entirely different
Well,
character.
and I think the thing that they achieved with Ruffalo that they didn't achieve with the first two films is I enjoy watching Ruffalo. I don't feel like his scenes are clocking time till we get to the Hulk.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Which I think, regardless of how much I like the other two Hulk films, it still has a little bit of that. Like, okay, when's the Hulk gonna show up and everything gets fun?
Yeah, I mean, Whedon has said that. The reason that Marvel hasn't greenlit another solo Hulk movie based on his success in this one is Whedon said, well, Marvel's kind of worried. They're like, well, why make a movie that's just stalling until the scenes that people want to see the Hulk smash things? Because that's why you go to the movie in the first place, is to see the Hulk, but you're kind of waiting for that to happen the whole time. It's a tough balancing act. And
Well,
even Hulk in the
and I've seen some reviews that specifically with Incredible Hulk made a point that I thought was really good, where they talked about how the problem with that movie is that you can never be behind Bruce Banner because he just wants to get rid of the Hulk, and that is in exact opposition to what the audience is there for.
Yes, exactly. And the Hulk comics have similar qualms. It's just telling stories with that character are tough
Yeah,
sometimes. As much as I like him.
who was that guy in the early 2000s that did Return the Monster? Bruce Jones. Bruce
Yes,
Jones'
yes.
run had that problem where he wanted to make Hulk event, and after two or three arcs, people kind of got tired of that.
Hmm.
Of doing 6 issue arcs where Hulk shows up for one issue.
If I can, I want to talk to about Captain America for a second
All
because
right,
we
sure.
talked over that
But
scene.
Iron Man's on the
And
screen now.
yeah, but I'm gonna say something about Captain America, so you just hang on for a second. Well, I think it's really cool. Again, watching this after seeing Winter Soldier, it's so cool that Nick Fury is talking about the Tesseract and giving Captain America exposition about Hydra's secret weapon and all of that. And I mean, of course, he's seen it before. And they're talking about that, and they have no idea that Hydra is there amongst them, and that we're actually setting up more Hydra stuff.
Can I tell you how annoyed I was at the end of this movie with the fact that the Stark A is the stylized like the Avengers A, and I didn't catch it? It's not even stylized like the other letters in the sign.
You're right, it's not. It's just the Avengers A. It's like, why did you do it like that? At least make the rest of the font look the same.
Nobody
It
noticed.
still looks cool though. No, but it looks cool.
Well, and it should be noted that we're jumping straight. It seems like based on this film, I mean, we haven't seen this Avengers Tower since this movie, but based on this film, it seems like we're jumping straight to Avengers Tower, which is a Bendis thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, we definitely are. And I mean, I don't know how much stock I can take in other non-canonical things, but like Disney Infinity 2's got it.
oh, really?
Yeah, like when you go around in New York City, in that game, they've got this tower with the Avengers logo on it.
Well, that's cool. But yeah, that's the thing
So
Bendis brought
that's
in. Before
definitely
that, they had
I
a
would say that's
mansion.
definitely going to be in the next movie.
I wonder if there's hardcore purist Avengers fans who I know most of them hate Bendis's run, but I wonder if there are some that are annoyed that it's not the Avengers Mansion.
Well, those people would also be annoyed that Jarvis is an AI and is not a physical butler.
A butler, yeah.
But he's
That's
going to be
true.
the Vision in the second movie, so that will be cool.
Did you hear that we're
You know,
getting Jarvis in uh what's the other Shield show we're getting?
Agent Carter.
Yeah,
Yes,
Agent
they're
Carter.
good.
We're getting Jarvis and Agent Carter.
we're getting a physical Jarvis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and so that means the AI was like based on that guy?
Yeah, I'm guessing he'll be Howard Stark's butler because Howard Stark's going to be in that show.
Because Howard Stark's going to be in that show. I am so excited. I'm liking everything I'm hearing about that. And did you guys hear that the Russos are directing 2 episodes?
Really?
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't hear that. Oh, that's cool.
And some of the there's a writer or two that's worked on the Captain America movies that's supposed to be involved. So like there's a lot of people specifically that have worked on the Captain America movies doing that show.
Well, they're
I am
once again
so-
pushing for MODOK in Cap 3 because they pushed for MODOK in Cap 2 and were denied.
Oh, I want MODOK so bad. I'm so
they're
down.
gonna get him at some point. Everybody wants MODOK.
Yeah.
After the minor spoiler thing, but after the first episode of Shield this year, everybody was like, Fitz is MODOK.
See, I really want MODOK to be what's his name from Iron Man 3? I'm trying to think of the actor, not the character. But the guy who's not the Mandarin.
Trevor? Ben
Yeah,
Kingsley?
no, not Trevor. The actual guy that when the movie came out, they're like, oh, he's
Guy
the Mandarin. Guy Pearce. Yeah, I just want Guy Pearce to be MODOK because MODOK runs AIM and Guy Pearce ran AIM. So.
Oh, that's true.
And Guy Pearce has a weird head, so when you superimpose that on on a robot.
I think the perfect role for Stan Lee to play is MODOK in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just have him be a floating head.
I can't remember because it was like 4 years ago when we did our commentaries for Iron Man and Iron Man 2. But have we addressed the fact that the swinging bachelor charming superhero is the only superhero in all film to have a stable, steady relationship through multiple films?
I guess that's true. I guess I don't know what point you're making.
I just think it's interesting that's the only ongoing, consistent, not breakup relationship in.
But like as opposed to what?
As opposed to Spider-Man or Batman or.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Batman's kind of a swinging bachelor. He's just only pretending to be swinging.
And to be fair, Captain America didn't have the choice to break up with his girlfriend, too.
He could have been with her while she was in that hospital.
And also they've only lasted so far, right? I mean, like we had 2 movies with the new Spider-Man where he was with Gwen Stacy, and that was finally starting to work, and then it just didn't at the end. But like. For obvious reasons, but like, I don't know. I mean, they could kill off Pepper Potts at some point. I don't know.
It didn't work because they wanted to go to Europe. It's a curse. In Spider-Man, go to Europe. It's a curse.
I see what you're saying, Eric.
Well, that's also where the Green Goblin raises your kids. Is in Europe.
Exactly. Yeah.
We talked over a little bit that I think is one of the strangest in jokes in the entire film, which is that Coulson's girlfriend lives in Portland, because like half of the current Marvel writers live in Portland. Bendis lives there, Fraction lives there. I think Brubaker lives in Portland.
Portland, Oregon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
They've now dealt with that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, have they? Do they go to Portland?
Yeah.
Is Bendis there?
I don't know. Well, they didn't show Bendis. Bendis wasn't in the episode. But yes, they did deal with the whole cellist thing.
It would have been.
But
really
yeah, I assumed when they made this movie that was just a throwaway gag because everybody lives in Portland apparently.
Earlier, there was something I wanted to mention. This is several scenes ago now, but when we saw the kind of creepy council that deals with the government council that deals with S.H.I.E.L.D., something I really wanted to look for because I hadn't watched this in a while is were they the same actors? And indeed they are.
Mm-hmm. The floating heads of doom.
Yeah, that we actually see at the end of Winter Soldier. And I keep making fun of them in Winter Soldier because half of them are people who have played major villains or antagonists in other movies.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, and that one's Hydra, and that one's Hydra.
this scene that's going on right now, I didn't know until I had looked it up later, but Thanos' henchman here is supposed to be an Annihilus, who is a
I
Fantastic Four villain.
Oh, really?
I heard
Yes.
that thrown out, and then Kevin Feige said that that's not true.
Oh, okay, okay,
I didn't think
sure.
that was the case. Yeah.
I had read that in articles. I must have read them right after the movie came out.
R.I.P.
Do any
Nameless Minion.
research later.
So, Eric, earlier when you said that this movie it feels like just a straight up comic book on screen, I feel like these kinds of scenes are really indicative of that. They do not just like with Thor, and this takes it even further. They're just not shying away from that cosmic kind of over the top comic book look. It's right there.
Yeah,
I never
absolutely. Well,
thought
right
we'd
down to
see
Cap's outfit in this movie.
yeah. I never thought we'd see like Loki's horned helmet in live action before these movies started being made, you know?
I just think it's really fun that they're like out talking in space.
Yeah.
Even that's kind of a big deal for me, just because I'm thinking about Infinity Gauntlet and stuff, and like how much of that is just people out in space.
But it's space in his mind, which is even more Jim Starlin-y.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so I have heard people talk about the Helicarrier like it is the dumbest thing in the universe.
Well,
Really?
let's hold on.
Why?
Hold on.
Why is the Helicarrier the dumbest thing in the universe?
Because when the Helicarrier shows up, it crashes. We have yet
Yeah.
to see a Helicarrier that has not been crashed.
So it's like, why are you spending so much money on these if they always blow up within like 48 hours?
And then we built 3 of them, and they all blew up.
That is a really good reason to think that Shield building them is dumb. But I don't know. I hear
Could
people
you
sometimes
imagine
say,
the outrage on the 24-hour news network if we spent millions of dollars for 4 helicarriers and they crashed within 24 hours? No, I always thought the helicarrier was cool, and I think the reveal here is cool.
I don't know. I can kind of see where people are coming from. It is kind of redundant to have a plane that has planes on it.
Yeah, but nobody will see it coming. No one expects a plane full of planes.
I mean, I guess. Like, you could just launch those planes from the ground on a military base. You know what I mean?
Somebody just said secure the deck, and I think Coulson should do the same. With his deck of Captain America trading cards that are going to be a very important plot point later.
Well, what's kind of funny is before the movies, despite being the helicarrier, I never really thought of the helicarriers carrying airplanes. Usually superheroes just land on it and then go talk to Nick Fury.
It's clearly that's part of what it's for, dude.
I know, but when you see it in the comics, it's just superhero X shows up on the helicarrier and goes to talk to Nick Fury. Like, I never thought of the fact that it carries airplanes.
I really like the beat here, where Bruce Banner is like, yeah, this is not good. I should not be on this thing.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is much worse.
I don't know that it really is, but I think that's a funny line.
Well, I mean, if they're under the ocean and he hulks out, everyone dies. But if they're in the air and he hulks out, everyone dies, and possibly people below them die.
That's a good point. Yep, that's a good point. Eric, do you think this movie feels like an especially Whedon script?
I feel like in places it does, but I think also Whedon's talked about how much of this, at least the story, was already mapped out when he came in. So it doesn't feel Whedon-y, especially in the structure or plot. But there's certainly Whedon scenes and Whedon dialogue.
Yeah, that's what I think too, and I think some folks that were really disappointed with it expected something that would like surprise them more, or like really like hit them in a really hard kind of emotional place.
I feel like we'll probably get that with the second one because it's much more
I think
controlled.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, that's kind of been my advice to people, is just like, kind of be patient. I think you're going to get that movie. But like Whedon, had to make this to get on board,
Right.
And again, I'm not saying this is a bad story, but you know, I guess some folks just expected it to be like a whole lot more like sophisticated or super deep or something, and complained that ultimately it just is more about the novelty of getting these people together and getting to see them kind of fight each other and
Yeah, but
stuff
isn't that the
than
first
actually.
arc of every new run of the Avengers is the getting them together arc?
Yeah, but that's the thing is that I think a lot of folks aren't really used to the Avengers because I mean, like 20 years ago, when I was a kid reading comics, nobody talked about the Avengers.
No, no, not at all.
You know, like we
Even
did
stuff
not
that
read Avengers comics growing up, and I think Marvel Cinematic is making Avengers a much bigger thing than it ever was before because it's bringing together characters that people have independently become fans of. I think that's really important. And so
and I
now
think
Avengers matters more because they made us love these characters, not the idea of a superhero team. And I think that's where some people complain about the novelty driving it.
I think Bendis helped a lot. Bendis made Avengers the number one book at Marvel for years. Um, which I think probably Marvel was really excited for when they realized, hey, we don't own Spider-Man or the X-Men, but we do own these people that Bendis has been making really successful for a while. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
like
mean,
I feel like even now, like people look back and talk about old Avengers runs and Jim Starlin and Roger Stern and Steve Englehart and stuff like that. But I feel like before, especially this movie, I didn't feel like anybody was talking about that stuff.
I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I used to hear people talk about the Kree Skrull War and the death of Captain Marvel, like all that classic Avenger stuff in reference to their importance to the Marvel universe all the time. Um, I think Avengers was important back in back before this movie because uh, Bendis says all the time that the trinity of the Marvel universe is Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, and I think to a large degree not popularity wise, but how it affects the entirety of the rest of the universe, I think that's definitely true.
But I'd say that circa early mid '90s, a lot of folks, if you said, "Hey, they're going to make a Justice League movie," they'd go, "Holy crap, that's awesome!" And if they said they're going to make an Avengers movie, people would say, "Ah, can we get X-Men maybe instead?"
Yeah, I mean X Men was the popular thing in the '90s, so I might be able to see that. But Avengers
Well,
was
and the
really
'80s
good in the
too.
'90s too. Like Kurt Busiek was doing Avengers at that time, and some of the best Avengers stories are being told at that time
No,
too.
absolutely. But I'm talking general public.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. But I was just speaking in reference to you guys were talking about like growing up and like reading the comics at the time. Um,
Well, yeah, but I wasn't even just talking comics. I was just talking people talking about superheroes. You know what I mean?
right.
Like the Avengers didn't come up as much. And I'm just saying that I think it's really cool that they managed to make this as gigantic as it was. I mean, like this thing broke all the records,
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
and
I feel
and
like
it's
a
because
lot
of these
of
characters individually first. How do you guys think? I mean, it's hard to know, but like, would would this movie have possibly been anything like as big had they started with it?
no, no, not at all, because
I don't think so either.
I think maybe the general public knew about. Well, I mean, everybody knows Captain America, at least aesthetically.
That's really super creepy.
Yeah,
I hate it when
that's a
that
leading
happens to
scene.
my face. Yeah. Oh man.
But I feel like Iron Man and Thor would be really hit or miss. Iron Man may be like, oh hey, Jerry Seinfeld made a joke about Iron Man. Hey, I saw Adventures in Babysitting. I kind of know that Thor exists. Um, but outside of that, like I don't think. Which, by the way, I rewatched Adventures in Babysitting a little while ago. There is so much Thor in that. I was surprised. I was like, who knew about Thor that this movie got made?
You know, now that you say that, there's something I want to bring up really quick. That is kind of an interesting little personal experience. A few years ago, when I was in college and taking writing courses, naturally I wrote sometimes references to pop culture stuff and superhero stuff in my stories. And I had a professor once who tried to go down a list of superheroes that you could mention for a mainstream audience that they would know, and other ones that they wouldn't. And because I used Thor or Iron Man somewhere, and he was like, "Yeah, that's not mainstream enough. Nobody's gonna know what that is." And like the world has changed
Yeah.
a
Hey,
lot.
by the way, how does the mind control scepter flip cars?
That's a good question, because they must be cars that have minds.
Oh, they're Transformers.
Yes.
I
Is
see.
kind of like that comes from, not even from this movie though. Like in Captain America, the first Avenger, it's able to do stuff like that too.
But that's a Tesseract. This is his mind control scepter.
Yeah, they're different.
Oh yeah, they're not powered by the same thing. That's right.
They're just both blue.
Yeah, doesn't he have a different stone
I think.
in his staff?
Yeah.
Like he's got the Mind Stone, but then the cube is a different thing.
I wish they
I've
were
heard
different
people
colors.
say this scene's a little too corny or on the nose. I really like this scene.
I do too.
Maybe it's weird for people because it's just like one man standing up and talking, but like I feel like we have a good enough sense of, you know, why that guy specifically would do that. Although, I mean, there are a lot of people there.
I really like the Nazi Germany line too.
Yeah.
That guy's the Captain America who's living in Germany. I like that Captain America comes to the rescue of that guy, and Captain America is all about the personality of the man informing what he's able to do physically. It kind of speaks to that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing is, we do have kind of a more heightened comic book kind of thing here. So when we get dialogue like that, it's hard for me not to feel it as being as unnatural as if it was someplace else. I guess it's just a tough balancing act because you'll have a lot of other dialogue that does feel like just stuff normal people would say. But when you get
Right.
people in costumes like this and you do give them some kind of one-liners and things, where exactly do you draw the line? Just how grounded do you want this stuff with the material we have?
Well, and what can you say to a medieval god?
See, I hear a lot of people too complain about the way Captain America's suit looks in this movie. I don't really have a problem with it. I think it looks
Really?
fine. Yeah, a lot of people hate the Captain America suit in this movie.
I don't hate
I
the suit. There's something off about the mask. I don't know what it is. There's something I would tweak. But
Yeah.
I
otherwise,
love
I
Iron
think it looks
Man's.
fine.
I just want to mention I love Iron Man's entrance there because it's such a stark contrast to the way Captain America handled it, and I feel like there's a whole. Did I say that? That's awesome. The
Yeah.
A in the middle looks like the Avengers A, and in my rewind on Captain America, I talked a lot about how it seems like intentionally or otherwise that there's a lot of setup of in between the Iron Man and the Captain America movies of just how different these two men are and how they sort of come to the same place, but they're from completely different worlds. And one like has heart in the first place, and the other one has to find his. And like when you've got him. When you've got Iron Man like flying in, listen to the AC/DC like that, and just like kind of just ripping in like that, I think that's really indicative of the difference between them.
Oh,
Well,
of course.
and I remember when they first cast Cap. Uh, I was worried that when these two got together, they'd just be riffing on each other and trying to outdo the other. And he's so good as Steve Rogers. Um, that didn't happen at all. But I outside of Cap, he's kind of most known for being in jokey roles. Uh,
Yeah.
and I thought they did it so well. They didn't kind of stoop to that.
Yeah, and we get to really see the difference between their ideologies, and it's fun to get to see that with two superheroes as opposed to just a villain and a hero,
Yeah.
which we've seen 100 times.
And I think the great thing about all the things you guys were discussing about pitting their ideologies against each other, as comic book fans, we can see the roots of Civil War happening here, like the ideological difference between them. If they were to adapt that story in some sort of Avengers movie in the future, and it doesn't feel on the nose or like, yeah, these guys are going to go against each other in some kind of like team splitting event later on. It's
Or like Iron Man suddenly has to act totally out of character and get thrown under the bus just so that he's the opposite of Captain America.
Exactly.
They've already made him the opposite of Captain America, but they still are very much on the same team. They want the same thing, sort of.
Yeah.
They just come at it in very different ways. I mean, Captain America is totally selfless, totally altruistic. Will throw himself in front of the train to save someone, and Tony Stark comes at it from a more selfish place. But he's had that character arc where he's not yet learned how to do the selfless thing exactly, because that's where he gets to in this. but he has at least discovered responsibility. And I kind of like that he's not Captain America yet, right? Like he hasn't already figured out everything, even to get to Captain America's level of heroism at the beginning of this, and they'll continue to butt heads. I think it's going to be harder to write those two together moving along since he's already done the self-sacrifice thing.
Yeah, I think the reason why
I think. Oh, sorry.
The reason why Captain America is the leader is exactly what you just stated. He's the only one that's the clear, altruistic at heart person out of.
He doesn't have to think about it. He's just like that.
Exactly.
Well, I think, or at least I hope, because Cap and Thor kind of have gotten, not Cap and Thor, Cap and Tony have gotten to a place by the end of this movie. This doesn't need to be Ninja Turtles. Every movie does not have to be Cap and Tony button heads and coming to a mutual agreement. Next movie we can focus on hopefully Hawkeye and I don't know.
Hulk, hopefully, since he hasn't had another solo
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. That's.
I love how this hill was built perfectly for this blocking.
Yeah, where is this in America, by the way?
When they back off on this and you see that there's a clear path just going all the way up it, I'm reminded almost of like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that my boy showed up when we were talking about that. Thor's here, and it's great.
Yay, Thor's here.
And we also got the line I was shocked to see in the movie. There's only one God, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Yeah, I love that.
That was that was really impressive that they put that line in, because it's such a 1940s kind of a thing to say.
Yeah, and what's great is they're allowing him to be that really kind of conservative character that a lot of people probably don't like that ideology, don't agree with that anymore, and yet they do it in such a way where it's not heavy-handed, it's not too in your face. They kind of make light of it, but people still love this guy.
Yeah.
Like they don't make it about the politics.
Well, and I think it's impressive that Joss Whedon, as a writer who's openly said he's an atheist, he's in commentaries for Buffy, he refers to God as the sky bully. He can still understand a character well enough and not put his own perspective in the character.
Yeah, they say, what would he say?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think to the point you were speaking about earlier, both of you, how Cap and Iron Man kind of want the same thing, and they're more similar than they actually realize. Tony Stark made the same observation when he lands on the ground there about Thor's dressed funny. He just says it in a different way.
Oh, that's a great point. Sure.
Also, I don't know if that works scientifically. 400%. I feel like it might explode.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure that's how science works. I am not a scientist, nor have I played one on TV. But I think that's not how science works.
So I've always been a little on the fence about this fight. It's really fun, but it is kind of that typical we've got to have these heroes beat the crap out of each other before they form a team. And it seems like they're being kind of silly and not being very smart about this, because why are neither of them thinking, what's Loki doing during all of this? I mean, like, the reason Thor is here is to grab Loki, and it's also the reason that, obviously Iron Man and Captain America are both here. I'm not sure what they're thinking. What are they fighting about right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do they think they've got to take one out? They've got to take the other one out before they can go grab Loki, who is hopefully still standing there watching this?
Well, I'm assuming that Captain America and Tony think Thor is Loki's ally. But I don't know why Thor's still here. Why didn't he just teleport back to Asgard after he got him?
But I do love this line. You want me to put the hammer down?
I think, when I was watching the movie, I kind of had the same thoughts you guys were having.
That's so pretty.
But the reason I was kind of okay with it when I was watching the movie in the theater was this is such a Stan Lee thing to do. The Avengers are, whenever the, superheroes come together to make a team, they always fight each other first and argue and do battle for some miscommunication.
Well, it's a crossover trope. The heroes misunderstand each other and fight, and it's always dumb, so it's kind of okay it's here.
My reservation is that I feel like we all can get that and appreciate it because we're familiar with this kind of stuff. But then, what if you're not?
I don't think
Right,
it
and I'm
matters
with you.
because
Like,
I think
it's
that
still a problem.
mentality
I'm
of
just saying, for me, it was
Oh no, I totally
yeah,
understand. I'm just asking questions.
right.
But Eric, I get what you're saying too. You're saying that well that's the trope that's always there. So this is initiating people.
Right.
well, not even that. But I
But
think
then just because it's a trope, should we do it?
well, the
Like I don't know
reason
that we
it's a
should
trope.
do
Hold
that.
on, the reason it's a trope is because everyone wants to see the good guys fight each other, and I think that idea is universal.
Yeah.
I don't think people coming in are thinking, normal people are like, oh, this must be what it's like in the comics. They're like, oh man, Iron Man's fighting Thor. It's. I think it's the
Oh, and
same
so you're
idea.
saying they would accept it more because they're us when we first read comics and
Exactly.
went, holy crap, we get to see these characters fight each other.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's a little bit contrived, but what are you going to do? Because it is kind of fun to get to see it.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
love
I
this
can see
scene
that.
with Loki and Nick Fury. The way
And
that
this whole thing is kind of straight out of the Ultimates.
yes.
This is Bruce Banner's prison in the Ultimates, which is interesting because again, kind of subverting the Ultimates. Here, it was made for Bruce, but he's not in there.
Hmm.
I've been saying this a lot in other things, but I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. So since Dark Knight, every single time a villain is in a prison, I'm always going to go, you guys are idiots. He wants to be there.
I
Yeah,
buy
it
it with
happens in
Loki
Skyfall
though.
too.
I'm not saying I don't buy it. I'm just saying that I will never be surprised by it again.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Definitely.
Well, and it's
I
kind of
wasn't
funny because
here.
I'm
When they
sure
said
that
that, I
was a
was like,
trope
oh,
before
yep.
Dark Knight, and we just didn't pay attention to it as much.
But how many times does it happen in superhero movies?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, a trope, sure, it's in stuff, but like, just looking at superhero as a genre, now that we got that and a really major one, it seems like everybody's doing
Well,
it.
it's the new evil businessmen. Like we used to always have the office scene where all the evil businessmen sat around with the Joker, um, talking about their plans. Here, that now we've replaced that with a new trope, a
Yeah.
new
Now
superhero staple.
now instead, when they bring back Norman Osborn in the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy, he's not gonna have an evil boardroom scene. He's gonna get captured and uh, want to
But what are
escape.
you supposed to do? Not capture the villain because they might be planning to get captured. It's kind
Yeah,
of an ingenious plan.
it is, and I mean, if you're gonna do it with any character like post Dark Knight, Loki's the dude to do it with. He's that manipulative.
Well, and I think of all of the times I've seen it since, Loki's has the most kind of like loose plan. Like it makes a little bit more sense. It's not supposedly timed to a T for his breakout and everything goes wrong. He's kind of just there to rile them up.
Yeah, and it's completely obvious from like, when he gets captured that he could get out at any point. It's kind of like when Superman gets captured in Man of Steel. This guy's a god. He could break out at any point if he
Well,
wanted to.
Loki could literally probably just teleport out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
I just noticed something I somehow hadn't caught before. I like that Thor insists that they speak of Loki with respect, regardless of what he's done.
Well,
Yes.
he is adopted.
I laughed pretty hard at that line in the theater the first time. The audience ate that up too.
Hey, can we mention Maria Hill?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't really care for her, and I've
Oh, you're wrong. I love her.
okay. I was gonna say she grows on me a little bit in Winter Soldier, but I don't
Oh, okay.
know. I'm
Uh,
still not in love with her.
What are your thoughts on Maria Hill from the comics? Do you like her in that?
See, I've always
Um,
been indifferent to her.
I really like her in Fractions Iron Man, and kind of since then I've enjoyed her. But that early Bendis stuff, she's awful. But she kind of picks up after Secret Invasion.
Hmm.
Um,
How old of a character is she?
She was
New
created by
Avengers.
Bendis.
Yeah,
Oh, she was really okay.
yeah. If you read New Avengers, right before that, Nick Fury goes into hiding to get ready for the Skrull invasion, but that nobody knows about except for Nick Fury. And she is the new head of Shield, and she is awful and terrible. And you kind of realize later that she's not really like that. She's just really overcompensating for being the top cop of the world. but it doesn't help when she's having people like go into Spider-Man's brain and take out all the information that he knows about things, and she's just not great in those first couple of arcs. But I like her in general. I mean, a lot of that comes from Fraction's Iron Man run, but
I just like Colby Smulders a lot and got excited that she got cast in that. I thought she was perfect for that role.
I did too. And then I saw her and I was like, oh, she's not as perfect as I thought. But I don't know. I'm still waiting for like a moment where like she really grabs me. She's kind of just there.
Have you seen her in Shield yet?
I saw her at the end of season 1. She shows up there.
I thought she got a couple cool moments there.
Well, we know how I feel about Shield, so.
Well, yeah.
But I'm not sure anyone gets a cool moment in Shield. So
if you're gonna ask, look, if you're gonna ask for stuff that I think you got already, I'm gonna point them out. That's all I'm saying. I think that Banner has his own way of speaking, and I mean I could say that about pretty much everybody in this. But I think that once again, I guess we're talking a lot about Banner, but they did a really good job of really realizing him and giving him his own vernacular and his own way of talking. Earlier when he says like his mind is a bag of cats, like that's a thing he says that nobody else would come up with.
Well, yeah, and I think it's really good because he's so often right next to Tony Stark, and they could easily talk very similar because they're both
exactly the
same, guys. Yeah.
Well, and I love that they speak the same language and that they both speak science, right? And of course he says that earlier. He's like, finally somebody who speaks English, and they really get each other. But they don't. He doesn't come off as a carbon copy of him that just is more prone to anger.
Right. Exactly.
And he's more reserved, and he's not as egotistical.
Well, it works really well for them to play off each other, much like Tony and Cap. Bruce and Cap are very similar and very different.
Right.
Well, that's true. Maybe he's like the midpoint between them in certain ways, right? Because like he's Bruce Banner is very confident, but he's not an egotist.
Well, and also Bruce Banner more than Tony, I think probably ever will, fears science as much as he is fascinated by it.
Yeah, and whereas Tony embraces everything technological, and then Captain America obviously is not the opposite of that, but
and I would disagree.
He doesn't
with
rely
you.
on technology.
I would disagree with you a little bit in saying that Bruce Banner is confident. Tony Stark kind of says to him, you're tiptoeing. You need to start strutting. Like you.
That's true.
There's things about you that you should be more proud of than you actually are.
I think he's confident somewhat in his abilities is all I mean. Like he knows what he's capable of, but he's afraid to use what he knows he can do.
Yeah.
Right? So he's trepidatious before he's insecure.
Yes, yeah, that's a very important distinction, and I agree with you on that.
But I'm glad that you challenged me on it because you're right. He's not the go-getter Tony is. Tony's ready to just walk into a room and fix everything. And Bruce Banner, for very good reasons, is like, when I touch stuff, they explode.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I wanted to talk about the relationship between these two that you guys touched on very well, and I agree with everything you guys said. This movie kind of made their relationship and friendship a thing. Like they had interacted before in the comics, but it wasn't like Bruce Banner and Tony Stark were like good friends in the comics before. This is kind of unique to this movie, and I love that because it's a connection that I had never really thought of before, but now that I've seen it, it seems so obvious.
Wouldn't you imagine that's a thing that Whedon probably? I mean, I'm speculating, but that Whedon probably came up with and really brought to the forefront because he's so good at friendships and relationships. And the first thing he said when he got the job for this was, what we're making is a movie about 6 people that do not belong on a team together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And like it doesn't make sense to put these people together, but they have to find a way to work together, and that's what they're doing. So with that being his mindset, doesn't it make sense that he would be looking for any similarities he could find between these characters and bring out those comparisons and contrasts?
Well, and it's so much more interesting when you have people who are different but have similarities than just people who are completely different.
Yeah, because they can't find common ground, and you see a lot of common ground between all these people, but of course they are very different, and that makes a lot of sense because in a way it's almost like we're commenting on how not immediately natural this whole idea is in filmmaking. Like if we can make this somewhat about the actual like piece itself and how you make it, that we're taking all these different movies and putting them in a sandwiching them together in a movie. So like
Well,
those
and
relationships kind of reflect what we're doing for a project.
it's so funny with this movie now in hindsight. It's like that whole thing where like I remember people like, there's no way Captain America's gonna work, there's no way Thor's gonna work. Nobody's ever gonna go see these movies. These are the hardest sells. Oh, Avengers will never work. And we're so far past that now. Like
Yeah.
it's almost hard to believe that we ever thought it couldn't work.
I never in a million years would have thought that I would be likely to put a Captain America movie in my top 5 or top 10 superhero movies of all time.
Well,
Oh
given
yeah.
given that the only example previously was the '90s movie, I think that would have been a fair guesstimate.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought that about a lot of these characters. But like Captain America. But even after First Avenger, I never thought I'd get that movie. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I liked First Avenger, but I wouldn't put it in my top 10. Winter Soldier's something really special.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
One of the things that I really liked about the past scene that we saw of Captain America investigating the
Oh, we're gonna
shield.
talk about this movie, Dan? You want to talk about this
Yeah,
movie?
yeah, I
Okay,
do. One of
go
the
Well,
ahead.
things
this
I
is
liked
kind of
about
the
that
way
scene.
station between all of the other Marvel films.
That's right. Yeah, it's the hub.
Yeah.
It's the interdimensional. Go ahead, Dan.
So one of the things I liked about that scene, in paralleling the thread we had before, we were speaking about Tony and Iron Man, not Tony and Iron Man, they're the same person. Tony and Captain America being similar and not really finding common ground despite that. They're both immediately suspicious of Shield and have two different ways of investigating their suspicions of them. Tony hacks into the computers, and Captain America goes and physically does something to try to investigate it. They both come at the problem from different ways, but they're both suspicious and for different reasons. And I don't know, like all those subtle. Maybe it's not as subtle as I'm making it out to be, but like the parallels between the two of them, I think are really interesting, and I like that a lot about their relationship in this movie.
Well, I think looking at the scene now, I was thinking about this as we were talking about how everybody's so similar and different. Thor is
Yeah.
probably the biggest outsider of all of them.
Of
And I think
course.
Chris Hemsworth really does a good job of being able to keep up and just through sheer charisma making himself fit with everybody else.
Mm.
Because I don't feel he has a. I mean, there's definitely a warrior thing between him and Cap, but I don't
Yes.
really feel like he has any kind of quantifiable dynamic with any of the other characters, except
I think he
for
does with
how
Iron Man.
different he
They
is
both
because
come.
he's a god.
He has similar ground with Iron Man, and they both come from privilege. They're both
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
They're
it's
both
true.
people that were. They're both people that were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, in their hand.
Well, and
Yeah,
they're also both people that had to be taught a lesson about that.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, and the difference right now is just that one of them has an immediate responsibility to the world because it's the world that he lives in, and the other one has responsibility because it's his brother from where he's from that's doing all these horrible things.
Half brother. He's adopted. This is a
And I
really good
like
scene
that.
too.
I like it too. The big thing that we get to see I always want to call Black Widow Scarlett Johansson in this, and then I have a couple times accidentally called her Scarlet Witch and been like, oh no, I can't believe I did that. But what Black Widow really gets to show us in this movie is just how good she is at manipulation and deception,
And
and
Loki's
later
the
on
master of
when
that too.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And when so we get to see a tete-a-tete where they're both trying to do that to each other. By the way, we haven't really talked about her too much in correlation to the other characters. That's a big thing that she has that none of the other ones really do. Everybody else is very kind of I guess I'm saying this without thinking it through, but I think I'm right about it. That like that like everybody else is kind of like blatant. What you see is what you get, kind of right out on the surface. I mean, Bruce Banner is the least of that, just because sometimes he can turn into a big monster guy, and you wouldn't expect that if you didn't know he could do that. But it's not like he's deceiving you on purpose. He doesn't mean to do that.
Right. Yeah.
That's like an opposite side of a personality that he doesn't want to take out. Where it contrasts that with Black Widow, who like you can never really tell who she is and
Well,
and what she's about. So she's kind of a deceiver.
I disagree with you a little bit. I think the reason that Black Widow and Banner are deceptive is for the same reason. They feel like they have to be. Black Widow is deceptive because that's her job, and Banner is deceptive because it's a necessity to live a functioning life. They both see deception as a necessity in going about their daily business, and I think
I
that's
suppose
why
it's,
Whedon. I think that's why Whedon had them introduced in like Banner was
oh, that
introduced
makes
by Black
sense.
Widow in the same scene.
Yeah, but I guess it's just very different kinds of deception, right? Because like
Right? Yeah. It's
Banner,
it's very yeah.
there's the Banner side and then there's the Hulk side. With her, she's got all these layers.
Yeah, she
There was
does.
something I just thought of with the interrogation scene. This movie touches on some really dark things that we don't actually get to see.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
with her backstory, and there's also the mention of the cutscene from the Incredible Hulk where Bruce Banner puts a gun in his mouth, and the Hulk spits the bullets out. There's a lot of stuff that I think in this movie you would not find in a standard summer blockbuster, or at
Well,
least a lot
you
of
wouldn't you
implications.
wouldn't used to. I think the world is changing. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of it.
Yeah, well, in a post Dark Knight world, everybody wants to be dark.
Into
But
darkness.
But
there's
not
there's
just dark. I
implications
think I
for.
think everybody wants to be sophisticated or be at least seen as being sophisticated.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
I mean?
true.
Where it's not just a, it's no more are, and this is a good thing, I think. No more are people accepting with a lot of movies just the popcorn schlock. People are hitting each other and car crashes, and then you go home. People are expecting to be moved or challenged, or for movies to be thought provoking now. And I think that there is a danger of movies trying to dupe us into thinking that they are that and then not being
Dark Knight
actually
Rises.
that. But I think it's good. I didn't say it. I think it's 30 comments. I think it's that's somewhat of a small price to pay, maybe, though, for the fact that people are yearning for that, right?
Well, I
That's
think
what
it
we're
presents a
wanting
little
more.
bit. I think it presents a little bit of a problem when you do have those movies that are just trying to be kind of a small something fun, and people come out. I think Pacific Rim was a good example, where people came out of Pacific Rim and were disappointed because it was a movie about robots fighting monsters,
But
and
it didn't
that's what the movie
emotionally
was.
resonate with them. Yeah, and you're right, and that can be the problem. And of course, some people railed against this movie for the same thing, where it's just a bunch of people in costumes fighting aliens at the end. I think there is more than that going on. I think we've touched on a lot of that. But people compare it to other things and they go, yeah, but movies are now supposed to be this. So you're right. We could run into the problem of people wanting everything to be the same, and we need to take things on a case by case basis. On the other hand, I like that people are wanting less formula.
Yeah.
But again,
They
like,
go back
take
to
everything for what it
formula.
is. Take everything for what it is. And I've always said, be objective enough to say, what is this trying to do? Is it achieving that? And do I care about what it's trying to do in the first place?
Yeah, the problem with wanting your movies to all be sophisticated and about a grander point is you have to have a grander point to make, which, by the way, this shot is brilliant.
I
It
like it a lot,
perfectly
but let's talk about the scene real quick. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was the scene that perplexed me the most in the theater. Everybody is just suddenly arguing real hard and talking over each other, and then we have that staff, and that's a very Whedon shot thing. We've seen that kind of thing in Buffy and Angel a lot. Is the staff messing with their minds? Is that what's happening?
yeah, I thought that shot made it completely clear. that the staff is messing with their minds. It's upside down because it's turning them upside down, metaphorically speaking.
Well, see, I always thought that was definitely obvious. Oh, I never thought of that. Huh, I'm dumb. I never, so I always thought that was definitely what was going on, but then I've heard a lot of people, like confused as to why Banner hulks out when he does if he's able to control that the rest of the time, and I thought it was because of the staff.
I think I think it's a much higher anxiety situation than he's been in the rest of the film. Like he can keep cool most of the time, but
Yeah, but I thought the whole idea was I'm always angry, so that's not what turns me into the Hulk anymore.
I think when he says he's always angry, is that he has this rage inside of him, and he's learned to temper it in that he can control when it gets let out and when it is not let out. Like the end of the Incredible Hulk, uh, the one with Ed Norton, where he's meditating at the end and you see his eyes glowing green. I think that's supposed to be him being a master of the anger inside of him. You know what I mean? Like
well,
he's
and
able to
based
control
on
his mind in that
and
way.
based on the continuity of that film, it's not anger, it's adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could be scared into being the Hulk. Um, and I think that's I think maybe the staff is affecting it a little bit, but I think it's the situation.
Mhm.
I really like the line, even though it's because their minds are being messed with by the staff. And yeah, the more I'm watching this, it's really obvious, right? Because we suddenly got Thor acting like not worthy to pick up the hammer. Thor going, "You're all petty and
Well,
stuff." He doesn't
and when
do
he
that
says that,
anywhere
it's a
else.
Dutch angle too. We have a lot of camera moves going on here that are kind of
That's a good
suggesting.
point.
But I think what makes this scene work so well, and what maybe confuses people, is um, it's all stuff that's below the surface, anyways. No one is completely out of character. It's all stuff that maybe they were thinking or they had in their mind a little bit.
You could push him to it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got them really angry and riled up and they got really irrational, as people can do without having a mind control staff around them,
Yeah.
you could get them there. But yeah, when and to your point, when Tony Stark says to Steve, everything that makes you special came out of a bottle, I think that's a thing that has probably crossed his mind before this scene.
Well, we get a little bit of a
I love
line
that line a
about
lot.
so you're the guy my dad was always so obsessed about.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised uh, if at some other point we get some
But
kind of idea about maybe Tony's dad was a little obsessed with Captain America. Um,
oh wow, and so like part of the reason that Tony is the way he is because his father had this hero worship thing and Tony never appreciated it.
and because of that, Tony never lived up to that
Oh,
standard.
and so Captain America himself, or the idea of Captain America, is part of where the extreme ego comes from in the first place.
And also his estrangement from his father.
Boy, that's brilliant. I hope there's more of that.
Yeah, I hope they go there too.
As
That's
we go
awesome.
along, that is wonderful because that scene where he says everything special about you came out of a bottle. You get the sense that both of these men, to be great heroes, need both of the same thing, which is heart and the means.
Well, and I
And
think there's a little bit of ego on Tony. Where like, well,
yeah,
everything about me, comes out of a science lab, but I made it. You didn't
yeah,
make the bottle that made you.
no. What he's saying is it all came from my brain,
Yeah,
from my
my
intellect. It's
brain.
all me. But what he doesn't get is that Captain America does have a thing that he doesn't have, which is that selflessness.
Right.
And of course, his character arc is he develops that by the end.
Well, he becomes more selfless.
Yeah, he at least in the moment finds that within himself. And you're right. I mean, the nice thing about Iron Man 3 is that we don't go into that and all of a sudden we have Tony Stark, Captain America.
Yeah.
There's a difference between you made a choice in a moment, and I think Captain America helps him to get there, versus you have, I always say it this way, you have the Ebenezer Scrooge, one thing happened to me, and now I'm a completely different person.
Right. Well, it's more realistic. People don't just light switch change. They start moving in a different direction.
I think this scene is another example of what we were talking about, or at least I was kind of thinking about Black Widow and Hulk and them being sort of similar, pairing them again and her being able to, or at least trying to talk him down a little bit. Because I think the interesting thing with these two characters is you never really get to meet the true person of either of them. Like Bruce Banner, you take all that anger away from him, he's not the true person that he really is. Like you're never going to be able to meet the real Bruce Banner unless he gets rid of the Hulk and can let that anger run free in his normal personality. And Black Widow's kind of the same way.
Are you saying that Dan, that it's like that it's like good Captain Kirk and evil Captain Kirk?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you saying that Bruce Banner
from
understands that it's not easy being green?
Yeah, it's like the Jim Carrey version of the Grinch, where they don't pick him up, and he's like, "It's because I'm green, isn't it?"
I'm
No,
I'm I'm
Dan,
I'm
that's a
gonna.
really point you're making about the Hulk. I hadn't really thought about it like that before.
I just think that's why the Black Widow and Hulk are so often in scenes together in this movie, because Whedon picks up on the fact that they're more similar than I had ever thought about before. I didn't think about that before this viewing, where I'm talking to you guys about it.
And it's the same thing as we never thought really to put Iron Man and Hulk together. And there's like, oh, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm glad that we have more than just like that. I guess I'm going to go back to Star Trek again. We have more than just the triad, because we've been talking a lot about Hulk or Bruce Banner being kind of that midpoint in some ways between Tony Stark and Steve and I almost said Steve Banner and Steve Rogers. But then like everybody else gets to be paralleled and contrasted, and we get to explore how all these characters interact and interrelate. And that's why when people say that there's no character dimension in this film, I kind of scratch my head, because I think it's kind of there.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm gonna make a really minor nitpick that no one
Sure.
cares about.
Well, that's cool. Honestly, we could be more critical right now. We're just talking about interesting characterization things. Go ahead.
I like Hulk's hair in Incredible Hulk way more. I don't like the hair he has hair here.
I love everything about the way Hulk looks in this movie. I don't know. I'm just I don't like the way the Incredible Hulk looks in that movie. I think it looks way too video gamey.
Well, I think that's just a limit of the time. I'm sure this because the Hulk looks good here. I bet he'll look even better in Avengers too. Like I feel like every Hulk movie he looks a little bit better.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, the smartest thing we did was we stopped making him emerald green.
And this
Because in Ang Lee's Hulk, it doesn't matter if he's in a dark room or a light room, he has the exact same color of skin pigmentation, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
We learned that shadows affect things.
I honestly, I figured he just glowed in the dark.
Well, he is irradiated.
Oh, is that that would be a very clever way to explain away a special effect that we just can't do.
This Hulk and Thor fight that we're getting right here, this is classic Avengers Stan Lee kind of stuff here, and I was really happy to see that this happened. It's always a point of debate between Marvel fans who would be stronger, Thor or Hulk.
Well, and I think this one's way more earned than the earlier fight.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, there's a reason for this. He's not fighting Bruce Banner. He's fighting the Hulk. Somebody's got to stop the Hulk. And also, he's very much in his element here, right? I mean, the first thing we see him do in the first Thor movie is fight some frost giants.
Yes, and it's
Thor loves fighting giant monsters, and it's kind of interesting that science, in a way, is I'm just making things up as I go along. I just thought of this, but it's like science in a way is slowly making the Earth look more like the alien kinds of realms that Thor has been to.
Yeah, that's a good point. That speaks to the point that they made in Thor, where they're like,
the science.
You call
the
it
science
magic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. They went a long way to make Thor a very science fiction-y Thor in the way that a lot of Jack Kirby stuff did it.
I was going to bring that up too. Jack Kirby's Thor is very sci-fi as much as it is fantasy.
It's not as Norse as other people take. Even as recently as looking at JMS, his Asgard is very Nordic, as is a lot of the takes on the costumes in that run. Whereas you look at Jack Kirby or Simonson, and it's a very science fiction city. It's not about the history, and I think that's what the movies did. Is they made it more science fiction, so it fits better with the rest of the universe.
Yeah, and I'm on board with that because my favorite, Thor runs were written and drawn by those two people. So I'm down with a science fiction-y Thor.
Hulk looks right there when he is looking right into the camera. That's the best he looks in the movie, I think.
Oh, I agree.
This scene where the guy ejects and he still grabs him,
Yeah.
every time I saw this in theaters, had an audible like, like you just don't expect him to grab the guy that's trying to.
That's cool. I gotta be honest with you. I kind of feel like my computer monitor is not doing this justice. I don't like not watching this on a projector screen.
I'm watching it on
with you.
on my big screen.
I'm watching it on a laptop. Doesn't do it justice at all.
I'm the only one watching it justice, but
Yeah, but how big is your TV screen? Well, we won't do that.
it's like 60 inches, maybe 70.
See, I want to watch this on my projector screen right now.
Although this is the movie that also made me hate high definition. So
Why do you say that?
well, there's you know how when you go to Walmart, there's those line of TVs, and as the price tag goes up, the picture gets more and more high definition. There's a line where I can no longer look at the TVs, and there was a point where they're playing this movie. It was the first time I noticed it. Where at the end, it's Iron Man is laying there and his face plays off. I'm like, oh my god, it just looks like a dude in a plastic suit. I can't have that higher resolution. I don't want it.
Man.
And it kills lots. They're always running movies, and I always look at them on that TV where it makes everything look like a soap opera. I don't want that higher resolution. I want my movies to still look like movies.
I know I keep going to Winter Soldier, but this being so much Shield stuff, I can't help it.
That's fair.
When I went and saw Winter Soldier, obviously I had just been in the middle of working on my rewind for Captain America, so I was thinking of a lot of things that movie set up. But here, I'm thinking about the genesis of Captain America for the first time, having to consider that he might not be able to take what the government tells him at face value, and that he has to question authority, and that he can't just follow orders. And then you take that to the furthest extreme of the organization he was working for is half evil.
Yeah.
And I think that's really sad for him. But I also appreciate, we didn't talk about this earlier, that when he gets the sense that something is amiss and that he can't trust Shield, he doesn't ignore it. He doesn't get in denial about it. He immediately goes and looks for it.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite thing about Captain America. He believes in the ideas that America is supposed to stand for. He's not just like a cheerleading flag waver. He'll
Guys,
quit
did you remember
the mantle.
Hawkeye was in this movie?
Yeah.
There's Hawkeye.
I like Hawkeye's evil guy makeup because it looks like he's just really sick. It's like if you get this mind control, you probably have like a fever that's running into like the 110s, and
yeah, you get a little pale and clammy.
It's not good.
I should because we're just doing a commentary for Winter Soldier, I guess. The scene with Iron Man in the turbine is actually called back to really well in Winter Soldier.
Oh, is it? I didn't think of that.
There's a throwaway joke where Cap's talking about, or maybe it's Nick Fury, where they're talking about the helicarrier and like, oh yeah, Tony Stark got a close look at the turbines, and this is how they work.
Okay, so let's talk about the Coulson death as it's happening. Like, that gun is just the most preposterous thing I've ever seen.
I love it. It's great.
I don't even know what it does. Let's talk about this as it's happening. Oh, look, it just happened. Let's talk about it.
It should have stuck.
Thinking, kind of putting away Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for just a second. Did this play for you in the theater, or did you have what a lot of people, you guys both, did you have what a lot of people had, which was, yeah, okay, Coulson was kind of cool, but was it really that big of a deal to kill him off?
I didn't like Coulson. Like, he wasn't a character that I, had any investment in until this movie. I felt like he was generic authority figure from Shield, generic Shield agent until this movie.
Well, I don't agree with that. Especially in Iron Man 2, he gets a lot more character there. But I felt like he had been through the films. It wasn't necessarily a fully fleshed out earned character, but it still meant something to get rid of him. He was the guy that had been in almost all the other movies. So I thought I thought it was. I mean, my mom, who can barely, probably still doesn't know that Hawkeye's in Thor. She cared when Coulson died.
Yeah. I feel like they do a good enough job of making Coulson the link between all of them in this movie alone, making a case for it, that if you were to watch this movie, the death would have an impact on you. And it did for me, where I had even seen the other movies, but I was kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like this Coulson guy is like the character that...
Hey, look, Thor's in a Wonka Vader!
Yes, he is.
It's the Great Glass Elevator?
Sorry.
I don't know. I just felt like Coulson was the guy that like was a plot device to tie the continuity of the movie together until we got this. That's just how I kind of felt about him.
But I also thought that was symbolic.
Symbolic of what?
That he was the guy that tied everything together, and now they're together. They don't need him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, and also, of course, Nick Fury is going to try to use him as the linchpin to get them all together.
Right. I meant more on kind of a metatextual level. Like, this was the guy that was tying all the films together. And now that the films have all come together, they don't really need him anymore. Because we know it's all in the same universe.
Well, and even, getting to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and resurrecting him, he's probably not going to be in the movies anymore.
Yeah.
So you're right. The movies don't really need him anymore. Now he's off on his own, and
I kind of hope he shows up
and not interacting with the movies at all. It's like that show doesn't even matter. I don't know. It's crazy.
If you would just watch more of it,
it does get better, Eric. You should.
You think you're so clever, and you're just you're just criticizing from a place of ignorance.
I watched like 8 episodes of a 24-episode season and the season premiere. That's enough.
No, I mean
you can't make giant blanket statements like nothing in it matters. Well, maybe the stuff that matters you didn't see. I feel like I'm just arguing and acting angry because it's funny. Folks that are listening going, wow, he's getting heated up. I'm not. But I honestly, I think part of the reason I loved Winter Soldier as much as I did was because I was following Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and seeing the correlations. When they set up Sitwell to go get on the boat and be in that movie, and then there's Sitwell, and then we find out that there were subtle foreshadows in S.H.I.E.L.D., spoiler alert, but subtle foreshadows in S.H.I.E.L.D. that Sitwell was Hydra. I don't know. That maybe I think I love that movie even more just because I watched that stuff.
I'm happy for you.
And we saw Sitwell in this earlier in the movie. I should have mentioned that.
Hey, wait, hold on. I have a question about this scene.
Yes.
What is happening here? Because he's not really dead, or no? I guess he did really die. That is the thing. Okay. Because I remember when they first started talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're like, well, we didn't see him die. I was like, no, we see the light go out of his eyes. He's dead in this movie. You can't confirm death much more than we do right here. But I guess in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he was in fact dead, and they bring him back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're already setting the precedent that some of his deaths don't matter.
Yeah, that kind of bugs me
I know.
A little bit.
And that's the rough thing. Yeah, and I mean, I'm very, on the fence about it, but I still like that show.
Oh, I like the show too.
It's not about the show at all. It's just
it's a lot cooler when you find out in that show how much Coulson had to do with it himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without giving too much
it's just
away.
In general, it sets a precedent that nobody's gonna stay dead, which I guess is fine. Like, do you really necessarily need I mean, obviously it'll be different than in the comics where literally everyone comes back, but
I think
we could still do that. That might happen. We might kill off. That might be how we like change actors, Eric. We might kill off Tony Stark, and then 2 movies later,
I've been saying that is the perfect way to replace Chris Evans, is to end it with the death of Captain America. Yeah, and then when you bring him back, it's a new actor. I think that's the perfect way to switch out Caps.
Except that, as far as Captain America goes, I'm liking the Winter Soldier thing enough that I feel like this would be a really good time to finally get away from that we resurrect everybody thing that we have in the comics and really just let Captain America go away and have a new one and not ever bring him back. I mean, like we could do that. Well, on the other hand, I also like the idea that a lot of people have thrown around, and I think this is more likely, that we just move Chris Evans upstairs and he occasionally will get a cameo, and he just works high up in Shield or wherever. Probably not Shield at this point. Who knows later on? But and then make Bucky Captain America, and he's still alive, but we just don't see him much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think those are the two possibilities. But I think
I want that tape.
If they adapt Civil War if they do that as an adaptation in one of the Avengers movies, I want Steve Rogers to die at the end and have Bucky become Captain America and he doesn't come back. Steve Rogers is dead.
But it's a time bullet, and he's just repeating history.
No, none of that. I don't want any of that.
I like the old fashioned notion line a lot. I feel like that's kind of the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool way to contemporize this, where we're setting it very much in present day with present day sensibilities, and we're not pretending like we live in a really idealistic world, or at least a world that pretends like it's idealistic, and yet it can still do that big over-the-top comic book stuff, partly because you have characters like Nick Fury that are trying to keep that kind of stuff around.
Right.
And yet Nick Fury is not an idealist. So that's kind of interesting that Nick Fury is the guy who wants the altruistic superhero concept so bad, and yet he's the big compromiser, right?
Well, I should note, I think this is the cleanest Nick Fury I've ever seen. This Nick Fury doesn't really do dirty jobs.
At least that we've seen so far.
Especially now that I've read Original Sin.
I haven't read that yet.
Wow, man, that.
But
anyway,
well, and especially the ultimate Nick Fury is the dirtiest I think I've ever seen Nick Fury.
I was just gonna say, I think these spy organizations in the Marvel Universe, I like that they're practitioners of realpolitik, that philosophy that Henry Kissinger brought to the White House when he came in, which is just like ideologies and morals don't matter. It's just whatever's better for your interests is what goes. And Nick Fury practices that to some degree. He's a little bit. I agree with Eric. He's a little bit more idealistic than Nick Fury's I've seen, where it's just like the ends justify the means in any.
But to a point in this.
Well, and I think it's a little bit of, we don't touch on any real kind of political situation. And I mean, the dirtiest thing he does in all of this, I think, is the putting the blood on the cards. But the thing that this movie did that I kind of didn't like when I first saw it was all of the blame for everything bad S.H.I.E.L.D. does is put on the floating heads of doom. Everything Nick Fury does is completely altruistic.
I don't think that's true once you get into Winter Soldier. I think he definitely has kind of some blood on his hands, maybe.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than Winter Soldier, but it's...
mostly because he's going along. Again, I don't mean to make this commentary about Winter Soldier, but I'm not. Now that I know what I know, it's really hard to talk about this movie without talking about that.
But even in Winter Soldier, I think his heart's still in the right place. Whereas I think, especially at least since 2000, Nick Fury has been very. It's not just ends justify the means. It's understanding that he has to do some really terrible things to do some really good things, and I'd like to see some of that brought into the.
Right?
That's what.
That's what ends justify the means is, right? Like you do anything in the interest of some sort of net good, no matter what it takes. Like if you have to kill 200,000 people to achieve some sort of good, you'll do it.
Yeah. So what matters is the results, as opposed to some kind of an ideology or principle.
Right.
I do feel like with Winter Soldier that Eric that we do get some of that from him, because after all, I mean Fury is going along with this whole let's point a gun at everyone thing.
Yeah, but I guess you're right. I think it's interesting that I don't know if the
And thinks it's necessary. And you're right, I think heart in the right place to a degree, but then also these are things that are necessary. Some of it is delusion, I think. Or not really delusion, but like I have been made to think this is necessary, and I've been made to think it by the very people that are forcing this to. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we do Winter Soldier. So Avengers.
I think it's interesting that Shield in general in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of apolitical. Um, I don't feel like Shield. I don't know what Shield does. Do we know what Shield does in this universe? Because we've been
Well,
told that it kind of polices super stuff, but
Well, and also we know that it's been around since the 40s. One of the difficulties I really have with it is that it clearly is. Tell me if you guys agree with this. I think it is clearly something else in Iron Man than it is when we get to this.
oh, it absolutely is because in Iron Man it's not
they
called
can't
Shield.
even they can't even decide what the acronym. It's almost like am I really supposed to believe that they've had like that name for all these years and they couldn't think of an acronym?
Well, the idea
No.
in Iron Man is clearly it is a newish organization because
Yeah.
super things are starting to happen.
Exactly, and what we have these days in the kind of revised version is this idea. I mean, sometimes I feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is sort of like playing Magic, where like it's sort of the same game, but every now and again the rules change. In this or where we're at these days with Marvel Cinematic is it's like okay, like Agent Carter helped to create Shield all the way back in the 40s, and it because they had this kind of supernatural stuff already happening, and it's the problem is that in Iron Man we just didn't know about the Tesseract yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we didn't know
You know,
about anything. Like, it's very clear that they didn't, when they made Iron Man, they didn't know they were going to make Avengers. They were
they just
hoping they
didn't
were
have
going to
that
make
figured out.
Avengers.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean they were building obviously even at the end of that they were building toward it, but they didn't know if they were going to get to make that.
they didn't even know if Iron Man would be successful. So yeah, I think it's changed, but I mean that's comics, right? Like I'm pretty sure Shield has actually stood for like four different acronyms in the 616 continuity. That's
Yeah,
not even getting to
I
the
don't know.
Jonathan Hickman
I
thing.
guess the argument against or the argument sometimes is you guys have only made 10 films so far and it was that hard to get your continuity straight. But the problem is how much forethought can you really have sometimes? I mean, I'm not saying it's not a problem. I guess I'm just saying that it's not a deal breaker for me because it's like, well, we do have different people making these
Well,
movies.
and do you handcuff yourself to this little thing in the first movie when
Do
you
you
have a much
handcuff
better
the
idea for it
director?
now?
I mean, part of the problem is directors have felt handcuffed.
Yeah.
Already by them attempting to have forethought and figure. You almost would need one writer and one director for all of these to make it completely cohesive and never have those continuity problems.
Well, and
And
I
it's just
think Phase Two's kind of
we're not going to have a Walt Simonson for this. It's
well,
not possible.
I think Phase Two has kind of been helped by the fact that Joss Whedon seems to have been a guiding hand for the whole thing.
Well, I think that's why the whole Winter Soldier thing worked so well. Is that they had that planned so far in advance.
Yeah, and it feels like that for the whole of Phase Two is it wasn't like Phase One where it's like, okay, maybe we're gonna go to Avengers. Um, with Phase Two, Joss Whedon was kind of in control the whole time. He didn't tell them this is the story you have to tell, but he clearly knew where everything was going. Whereas in Iron Man, they don't have any idea where they're going. They're just hoping they get to this place. And I think Phase Two has worked a little bit.
But it does kind of hurt to go back to what we were talking. It does kind of hurt, like what the heck Shield is and what they're supposed to be doing. You're right about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of because the Coulson thing works a little bit better if he's one of like 5 people that really matters in this organization. And like now it's this huge giant grandiose thing. I mean, I guess not anymore, but it was for a minute, you know, it was everywhere. And you had all these agents all over the place. And so like Coulson feels almost a little superfluous when you get to the beginning of this movie. It's like why is it Coulson? It could be anybody.
So this is kind of the beginning of what sets or not the beginning. This is kind of the middle of this weird um armor arc that starts in Iron Man 2. Because in Iron Man 2 we get the I'm gonna be a total Iron Man
Here
nerd
we
here.
go.
I'm gonna
Here
be
we
I'm
go.
gonna be a total
He's
Iron Man nerd
oh,
here.
oh god. Dan, we can take a nap now. He's going on to armors.
Okay,
Can I just mention
so
something about Nick Fury real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
sure.
The scene that we talked over earlier with Nick Fury looking at the trading cards with the blood on them, I really like that scene because it spoke to a point that we made earlier about Nick Fury being a little bit more conscious than the 6161. He's clearly sort of conflicted about the fact that he had to lie in that situation. I don't know, like I got that sense from the performance and what was going on in the scene where you know, they needed the push. He felt like he had to do that, but it was this kind of thing where if he didn't have to do that, he wouldn't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we care more about him because he's feeling. He
Yeah.
at least feels something about it. It's like this is a necessary evil, not a whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas
exactly.
comic book Nick Fury probably does that because he thinks it's funny before he does the real horrible stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, comic book Nick Fury is a little bit more like Rocket Raccoon. I need that guy's leg.
And
But he
obviously it depends on
actually
what
needs
Nick
that
Fury-
guy's leg.
Go get it. Go get his leg. I need that guy's leg.
Yeah, and obviously it depends on what Nick Fury you're reading. Like if it's like, you know, Nick Fury Max written by Garth Ennis, he's going to be much more in that, you know,
Ultimate Nick Fury
kind
as
of
well.
terrible person direction. Yeah, and Ultimate Nick Fury too. Than if it's written by, you know, Stan Lee or whatever. But anyway, sorry, Eric. What were you going to say about Iron Man?
Okay, so we start this kind of armor arc in Iron Man 2 where he has the suitcase armor and oh that was so cool. And here we up it with this rocket armor and then Iron Man 3 we have just the armor that flies to him. And I don't know if it was a conscious effort or if it's just something that kind of naturally evolved, but we see this specific kind of technology evolve over the course of those three films.
Do you think he'll ever have the armor that's like a genetic thing? That's like in his blood
The
and then
fraction
just
armor?
like yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I think that's possible. I don't think so because I think that completely alleviates any kind of drama of having Tony out of the armor that he can
That's
just
true.
Power Ranger up. But
That's why they got rid of it right after Fraction left.
and I didn't like that because I thought they should have at least addressed it.
Well, they should have kept it around long enough for him to say it's morphin' time one time.
Well, he does say the armor is made of morphological components.
Oh, really? He says morphological? That's enough for me. That's awesome. Wow. Here's my autograph book.
But yeah, so I just think it's interesting that there is a conscious technological arc to Iron Man's armor through.
I didn't catch that. That's really cool.
It's not just here's this cool new armor. It's continued advancement of the same kind of technology.
So I feel like we've been clamoring really hard to make sure to get to all the really cool character stuff and thematic stuff as we've been talking about this movie. And now I feel like we get to relax a little bit because now we got the big giant, just everybody fights the aliens in the third act stuff.
And Hulk is the best throughout this entire act.
So we're gonna get like a half an hour of just sitting back watching this stuff happen.
I became a giddy child in the theater watching the Hulk smash things in this sequence here. And this scene where you see that waitress and you focus on her briefly and it's kind of strange. There's a scene with her in Captain America that they kind of flirt and they have chemistry together.
Isn't she the chick that's also? Isn't she also the chick that's in Much Ado About Nothing?
Yes, I think so. Yes, she
got like a secondary character role in Much Ado About Nothing. She really got along with Joss Whedon, I guess, on the set of this for that one scene they did.
And there's also now Stark Tower is like Waffle House. We just can't keep all the letters up there. But yeah, and then there's also like a whole bunch of like little tiny deleted scenes of them constantly focusing on her like running away from things and stuff. And
really?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. Or I didn't even know that.
This stuff. But again, they decided they didn't want a 4-hour movie, so
And that was the
they took all that
vehicle for
out.
one of Stan Lee's cameos too, because he's like, "What are you doing? Get a number." When he shows up.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. A lot of people, I have heard people freak out about the fact they cut that out just because it's wonky that they linger on her there for a second. And I gotta tell you, I saw this 2 or 3 times in the theater, and I did not even notice it.
I noticed it, but I just thought, like, it's a terrified pretty girl. We're gonna linger on her for a second.
I didn't
I
feel
just
like
feel
it's
like I
lingered on any
probably,
more than a lot of other people that we see just kind of reacting.
yeah, I feel like I must have either blinked or taken a drink of Coke or eaten popcorn every time that happened because I never noticed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not blatant or anything. It's just kind of like this girl keeps showing up in the the destruction of the city scenes, like you mentioned before. It's like, is she important in some way? Why do we keep seeing her specifically? Because
Yeah,
the
I feel
city's
like it would
blowing
have
up
been
for an
weirder
entire.
if we kept cutting back to her.
Oh yeah, that would have been really. I'm glad we didn't keep all that stuff in. That would have been really weird. It's like, who is this random? Are we just supposed to get all of this city stuff from the eyes of this one random waitress?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that Captain America falls for a waitress, though. That's totally in his character. Or he doesn't fall for her, but they have a chemistry at least.
Well, and then he goes after a girl in Winter Soldier for a second, or at least considers dating a girl that he doesn't know is working for Shield.
Yeah, exactly.
That just lives across from him.
And there is the thing that Hulk smashes, and it is so glorious. I
I
don't
like
even know
that
what it's
there's not
called,
a
but it
single joke about what are you going to do with that bow and arrow, and that
is.
he doesn't look scared.
Something that I am really looking forward to, we haven't talked about this yet, is actually fleshing out the backstory with Black Widow and all the alleged horrible things she
I
did.
thought you were going to say the
And
Chitauri. I thought you were waiting for a fleshed out Chitauri backstory.
yeah, that's what I need. And all the stuff with Hawkeye, because I feel like the movie, and again, I think some people didn't like this. I feel like the movie did a pretty good job in showing what she's capable of, just like all that deception we talked about earlier, everything she's good at in making people think that she's something she's not, in making me buy that she had all those horrible things in her past without me actually knowing what they are yet. But I am very much looking forward to them, and I think when I first saw Winter Soldier, I kind of wished we'd get more of it there. But then all that identity stuff is really interesting, so I didn't mind it.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm hoping for more character dimension for both of those characters. Not that like Black Widow is underdeveloped since this movie, or even in this movie. I feel like she gets enough to do that I get a sense of who she is and what she's about and stuff. Um,
I feel like there's a clear conscious effort from Whedon in this movie to develop
Oh,
her.
it's me.
yeah, I agree. And
Yeah, it's not underdeveloped; it's underprogressed so far.
yes,
There's a,
yes.
there's a distinction.
Well,
But
and she's
we'll get
also a character who doesn't have her own movies. We can only
yeah,
get her
and
through other
I think it
people's.
is very fair to complain about that.
She has
People
to
have
get a
said,
movie in
so
Wave 3.
when does she get a movie? Why isn't that happening yet? Especially because Sony's getting a lot of praise for announcing a female-led movie in the Spider-Man universe before we got one in Marvel.
But yeah, no, she has to have a movie in Phase 3.
Well,
I
and don't you think that
yeah.
Scarlett Johansson can very easily hold her own?
Oh, of course.
She just did that Lucy movie that apparently no one liked, but everyone saw. It was like a box
I
office giant.
I did not like that movie at all, but it wasn't her fault. She was great in it. I just didn't like the script.
Well, I mean, clearly
Also,
people will come see her.
why is that movie a listed as a superhero film?
It is?
I don't know.
It's not a superhero anyway. So Avengers.
Um, I love all of the cool little arrows that Hawkeye gets to use. I think the way that they did his quiver is the coolest use of that. Like, every archer character has trick arrows. The idea that there's like a thing that rotates the arrowheads and it's controlled by this nub on his bow, I think that's such a cool kind of real worldy way to do that.
Did
Oh,
you
I'm
know
with
that
you.
there's a
That's so cool.
poster? Did you notice that there is a poster for the stage play Lion King in
Really?
the background here?
Still? Is that still is that still on?
Oh yeah, it comes back every now and again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a really popular for stage production. But I mean, like, think about it. Obviously, the Disney thing had already happened by now.
I
Oh, you know what?
love
I
it.
didn't even think of that because I
Yeah,
so often in movies you'll see posters like that. Like I don't remember what movie it is, but there's a poster for the Lestat musical that was on Broadway for like 2 weeks and then went away because no one liked it. But there's a movie where that poster is there. Like that's just a
sure.
thing that happens when you shoot in New York.
Well, what I think is neat about it is that, yeah, it's New York, it's Broadway, and so we do have that kind of Disney thing there, but it doesn't feel quite as in your face as if it was like, you know, Mickey Mouse or something, because it actually fits. See, we're in New York.
I love that
Oh
scene.
man, Avengers 2 is gonna have a whole action sequence at Disney World.
I
Yeah,
love.
because that's where who did we say went to Disney World? Somebody went there.
Was it Hawkeye? Yeah, that's where Hawkeye
Yeah,
was
yeah,
when
because Hawkeye went to
doing
Disney
Winter
World. Yeah,
Soldier.
yeah. So that's why, because he liked it so much, he's going to bring the whole team there, and then they're going to have a giant fight with Morchitari in Disney World.
See, I think Jeremy Renner does a lot with a little bit in this third act.
Oh, he's great. I love the casting choice for him. He's got the personality of Hawkeye down fantastically. I just, I just don't think there's enough in the script.
Hey, it is a
So
motorcycle. I was wrong.
where did he get the motorcycle,
Actually, there
and
is a
how
whole
did he
cut
know
scene
where they were?
apparently
And
where the guy that finds him tells him that there's something going on in New York, gives him the motorcycle, and gives him a pep talk.
And that guy that finds him is a prolific character actor too. That Whedon chose specifically for that role because he liked him.
and
Yeah.
then they cut it.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. And then he's like, by the way, that I don't see how that's a party line. I don't think that plays.
I don't think it plays either. It's a Thor line.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, there are a couple lines like that that are either given to the wrong person or just nobody could make it work.
Well, I mean, Joss Whedon is the guy that wrote
Best,
uh, what
best
happens to a
moment of the
toad when it gets
movie.
struck by lightning.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he did write that line. Oh, Joss Whedon. I mean, I love you as a writer, pal, but we all make mistakes.
Sometimes your jokes just don't work.
Uh, it happens.
The movie is like 10 times better now because Banner's punching things.
Dan's just sitting around looking at his watch until Bruce Banner hulks out. He's like, "Why are you guys still talking about Black Widow? I don't care about that."
Hulk
So this
is Thor.
shot's
That's
kind
what I
of
need.
like the shot, right? Like that was the
Yeah, I
shot in the
love it.
trailers where I was like, oh man.
Yeah, well, it's like it's like what Red Letter Media said about the end of Star Trek Six when he reviewed Star Trek Generations, and then they all stood around and posed for a picture that nobody took.
See, we haven't talked all that much about the score of this movie, and I really like it.
Good theme.
When we were doing that roundabout shot of the Avengers that Eric was just talking about, it just reminded me of that because I really like the score and the theme of this movie.
How about that
It's
song that was on the radio for every third song on the radio for like 6 months after this movie came out?
awesome.
That
What are you
has
talking about?
there was a song for this movie. It's in the credits. I don't even remember what it is now. Something about heroes and sunshine or something. But it's it's an okay song until you realize that it literally is just like 2 lines long, and it's like a 3 minute song. But there's a song that was tied in this kind of like how like Hero was tied into Spider-Man, and it was on
They
the
say
radio
that
constant.
Hero could save us, not gonna stand here and wait.
Oh, those movies. I've referenced
And
that
they're
comic.
watching us.
I don't I don't want to poke holes, but I
Yes,
think
you
the outside of a building is more cement than metal. I don't know if you can conduct a whole building.
It depends on what kind of building it is. I would imagine, right?
It depends on how good of a musician it is. That kind of go.
I mean, I'm not an architect, so I wouldn't know.
I'm not an architect, nor have I played one on TV, but I don't think that's how. Although apparently everyone else has, because that is the
I'm
go-to
sorry, my
job.
wife is not on this commentary now.
Oh yeah, you could ask Sarah.
I can ask Sarah. I'll show her that clip and be like, Sarah, you remember this part of Avengers? Yeah, would that work? She'll be like, well, I don't have godlike powers where I can filter things through I don't really know.
See,
Well,
this
she would know
this
better
action
than
scene,
we would.
This action
She's like,
scene,
okay, imagine you have lightning powers, Sarah, and you have this building. Can you conduct like anyway?
this action scene made me giddy too because Hawkeye's doing awesome things like
Oh yeah,
shooting
shooting
an
without
arrow
looking.
like without looking. Yeah, I was like, oh man,
Yeah, I always
Hawkeye.
thought that was awesome.
Because I think my three favorite Avengers are Hulk, um, Thor, and then probably Hawkeye in this movie at least. People that are on the team. So
And Hawkeye, wow.
I like
I would
Hawkeye a lot.
I would probably go. I'd probably go Hulk, Tony, Hawkeye.
Hawkeye's awesome.
Yeah, Hawkeye is awesome.
Well,
But I have a
well,
weird fetish
Hawkeye's not in my
for
list, so
arrow-based
there.
superheroes.
I mean, that's
So
fair. They're all awesome characters.
Cause my list begins and ends with Captain America.
I like Captain
Short
America a
list.
lot too.
it's a little biased
I'm-
of a list too.
I'm just kidding, because I can't make it three, but then two of them are Captain America, so it would be it would be Captain America and Iron Man and Hulk.
Captain America,
But-
Bucky, Cap, and Falcon. Those are my three favorite Avengers.
But that's the thing, is that I kind of feel like when we get, I wish I'd said that. I kind of feel like when we get to Avengers 2, though, my list could change and your lists could change. You know, just depending on what they do. Like,
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
they've
just
already
based on-
improved Hawkeye's costume. If you've seen the pictures for him, he's got a cool jacket now.
I was not real on board with Black Widow. Even, I mean, I didn't dislike her. I just was kind of, indifferent toward her. Even in this movie. And then Winter Soldier, God, really turned me around on her.
Yeah.
And I like her a lot more in this now that I've seen that.
And I'm just talking about like characters in general. I'm taking into account the movies and the comic books. Like Hawkeye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just meant in this movie. Those are your favorites.
Right? Yeah. I'm talking about in the comic books. Hawkeye is one of my favorite Avengers. So like that's why I was like giddy in the scene, seeing him like do cool action stuff.
I also really like Hawkeye, especially given Fraction's current run, which is probably the best solo he's ever had.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love how their powers are combined in this scene too. Like that's a classic Iron Man thing. The shield.
This is a Whedon shot that is impossible. Because Whedon's big for the one take shot.
Waters. Yeah.
And this is that, but it's not an actual one take. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it looks great. I love that he brought that to a huge CG action scene. That's wonderful. You know, so you can see that kind of directing sensibility even in the middle of these really big things. And, you know, we haven't talked about that, but this is by far, obviously, the biggest thing he's ever directed. But, I mean, like, there's a huge gap, right? But, I mean, Whedon has never had this kind of a budget. Anything remotely close to this.
No.
And that was the thing that I really kind of made me kind of question it a little bit when it was first announced. Was I was like, I don't know what happens when you give Whedon $300 million. Because one of the things I've always loved about Whedon is how good he is at doing a lot with very little. You know, he's a minimalist. And I think he still brought those sensibilities to this movie and made things look a lot better than somebody else might have with that much money, who said, oh, we have that much money, we can make anything look good. Well, no, you need talent also.
Yeah, well, and
that's important.
And I think Avengers 2 will probably be even more of what Whedon can do with that kind of budget, because
it'll be his script through.
Yeah, it's completely his. And we've already seen that there's going to be an army of Ultrons. So
yeah,
I have heard some people. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm with you guys, like, on Avengers 2 probably being a lot better than this movie and showing us, like, you know, how much Whedon cares about these characters and how good he is at telling these kind of stories. These may be fighting words, but I'm more excited for Avengers 2 than Star Wars 7, and I'm a fan of both of those two things equally. Yeah,
I feel like most people are. I feel like I'm the only person unbelievably excited for Star Wars 7.
I'm unbelievably excited too.
I'm excited about it too. I gotta say this real quick.
You're not a Star Wars fan, Cap. You don't get to be excited for our thing.
Oh, okay. I don't care. Anyway, but a couple minutes ago, we actually did linger more on that waitress,
Yeah,
and
I
now I can
saw
kind of
that.
see what people are
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
I just felt the need to come out and say that. Oh, I didn't realize that we saw her again. Okay, fine, fine. It's
I
not that
never
big.
noticed that.
Some people have complained that about Captain America losing his mask in that scene a minute ago because superheroes these days always have to get their masks taken off,
He
and I have
has
to
a little
remind
bit of Tobey
folks.
Maguire thing because he does it in Winter Soldier as well. He loses his
But
mask a bunch.
I would have never thought about it because he has no secret identity.
Yeah, that's true.
Who cares?
Well, it's not
I just
about
don't
that.
understand
It's
that.
it's it's about just
What's it
wear the
about then?
costume. We
Oh,
understand
okay.
you're under
So
there.
are we complaining because of the realistic nature of it would be hard to keep a mask on in certain situations?
Yes,
Like
that's insane. Superheroes masks stay on,
stay on.
unless
Okay. Is that
unless
what it
you're
is?
Iron Man's faceplate and Captain America's punching you.
Nothing against
Then
anybody.
it
It's just
flies
not a thing I would have
away.
ever thought of to complain about.
No, it doesn't bother me nearly as much as it does in the Raimi Spider-Mans.
Oh, yeah, and I can see why that bugs people more. So Puny God is hilarious.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
And it's
also
a
a
And that's
line
of
I
course the
did
scene
not
where
know what it was until I got the DVD because people
yeah,
always laughed so hard.
yeah, you know why? Because they applaud for the next 5 minutes, and you can't even hear the exposition in this scene.
And that's a classic Hulk thing, calling his opponent puny, whatever they are, like puny human, puny god, puny
Yeah,
raccoon, whatever.
Puny Raccoon.
Yeah, if he's fighting Rocket Raccoon, that's what he says.
it's even more ironic when he's in the that miniverse that he gets sent to sometimes. What is that called? Is it the microverse?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because Carnage went there.
Because they're totally mini there, or they're totally puny there.
Yeah, that's the dictionary definition of puny.
Puny punies. I need to go back and read that Manlo stuff where he goes there. I've only read it when Peter David visits there.
Okay, so these things that are flying around and all these Chitauri are jumping out of them, are they alive?
I believe so.
I'm assuming they're alive. Oh yeah, he's got a yeah.
They're
He's opening his
semi-organic, if
mouth,
nothing
and
else.
yeah, they are partially organic. Okay, that does seem to be alive. That was the thing I wondered about in the theater.
Also, once
what's
again, if the
Safe arm.
helicarrier is dumb, then those things are dumb because they're
Actually, not safe
flying and
arm.
releasing flyers.
one of the things I want to mention about this battle scene too is something that people talk about. The Oscorp Tower from Amazing Spider-Man 1 was almost in this scene, but it got cut
Right.
at the last minute. I wish the
Well, it was
Daily Bugle
removed.
building was in here. Yeah, yeah. I wish the Daily Bugle building could be in
Yeah,
here.
and the
the
only
Baxter
reason
building.
the only reason they took it out was because they couldn't make the deal quite get finalized.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It was
and they're
supposed to happen.
still talking about the possibility of coming up with some kind of deal to get Spider-Man in an Avengers film.
I would love it. Now, I don't want Spider-Man to be an Avenger, but I can't think of any good reason that these could not be in the same continuity.
I used to have a problem with Spider-Man being an Avenger, but he's been an Avenger for like 15 years now. I'm kind of over it.
I'll never get over that. I don't like it.
I'll never get over it either.
Eric, I dislike that as much as I dislike apparently, allegedly, ostensibly Star Wars.
I didn't say you dislike Star Wars. I just said it's not your thing. You can't have this. You don't get to be excited for our thing.
You're just denying me my enthusiasm. Okay,
I'm not allowed
all
to be
right.
excited for Star Trek 3 Out of Darkness. You don't
You know,
get
there
to
would
be.
have been.
I hope they call it that so badly.
And then you know what they'll do? They'll end up having to call it the Star Trek Darkness trilogy.
The epic conclusion to the
The
Darkness
conclusion
trilogy.
to this thing that was not even remotely a trilogy in the first place. Now it's the Star Trek Darkness trilogy.
I feel like I've seen this movie before.
I didn't say that. I didn't say it. It was not me.
You were clearly making some pretty clear allusions.
No, I wasn't.
Don't get him in trouble, Eric.
Any similarities to anything that happened in real life is purely coincidental.
You know what? What would be a cool little nod in this New York fight that would have set up later for something they actually have the rights to? If we'd seen the Sanctum Sanctorum?
Oh yes, I'm totally on board with that notion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just don't know everything. What is that?
That's
It's
Doctor Strange's house.
lair.
Oh, see, I'm an idiot when it comes to Doctor Strange. I don't know hardly anything about that character.
I should lend you some Doctor Strange, and we should review it sometime. I think,
Okay, that'd be great.
yeah,
Well, because I gotta tell you, I'm gonna have to read some Strange before that happens because I appreciate Thor so much after reading as much Thor as I've read now,
mm.
and I never cared about that character now, but now I love it, and I'm reading current Thor, and I read
I've
Simonson,
only
like so.
read I've only read like all the way through the Ditko stuff, but the Ditko stuff is brilliant.
Yeah, the Ditko Doctor
I've
Strange
read
stuff
here
is
and
good.
there of some other Doctor Strange, but I love the Ditko stuff.
Some of the stuff from the '80s that I think it's Roger Stern did is really good too.
Oh, I like Roger Stern.
And I know people really like Englehart's run.
Yeah,
Um,
Englehart stuff is good. That's some of my favorite stuff too. He like finds God and stuff. He like chases God through time in one of those arcs by
yeah,
Englehart. It's interesting.
and I've heard good things about that Brian K. Vaughan mini.
It's very good too. Yeah, Mark Waid did a mini Doctor Strange too. That's decent.
Yeah, I've seen that on Amazon. It's out of print, but it's got a really cool cover.
Yes, yes, it is. I have that actually.
So
I didn't know it was out of print.
I just want to address um the phone vibrating is something that annoys one of my friends a lot because it
Oh
is
yeah.
the new because now everyone has a phone. We can't just have them not near a phone. We have to come up with an excuse for them to not be able to hear their phone.
Yeah, but why does that bother? That happens to me constantly, where my phone is like six
It
inches
happened to
away
you
from me, and I
yesterday when I
still
called
don't
you.
know. And I still no, that was not 6 inches away from me. That was upstairs, and I heard the buzz. But she's on an airplane, so she might not notice the buzz. That's fine. I'm just saying that happens to everybody. Have you noticed, by the way? This has nothing to do with anything, especially Avengers. But have you noticed that ringtones are just not a thing anymore? I don't hear ringtones anymore.
I
Everybody's phone is on vibrate.
I have
My
Light My
phone's
Fire
always
by the
been.
Doors as my ringtone.
Well,
I
like some people do, but I don't hear ringtones ever anymore.
Well, the thing
Yeah,
is, I get annoyed by my own ringtones. I don't want to hear anything for some reason, especially if it wakes me up. So
Yeah, that's kind of
I prefer the vibrate.
okay. So do you guys think that that Tony Stark earns this like almost sacrifice thing, and is it too obvious? Because like they they do the like this does kind of irritate me a little bit. They do the thing where like he comes out of the other dimension just in time.
yeah, and they like
Well, do you think we're
totally
ever going to
blow.
follow up on the fact that Tony Stark kind of just genocided an entire race?
Oh oh, that's a thing.
Eric, these are like the
Boy,
droids from the Phantom Menace. They're not real people.
But
You
these
just
are
blow up their
organic.
you just blow up their ship and they turn off.
Also, those droids have more personality, at least in the Clone Wars, than most of the characters in the pre-trilogy.
well, everybody's gonna facepalm when I do this, but Steve, Roger,
Spawn facepalm.
that was funnier in my head. Anyway,
You gotta chuckle
I
at
mean,
it.
No, no.
how do you,
Actually, what I like about this is
yeah,
as as obvious as it is in a movie sense of just he
we
survives just in
know
the nick of
he's
time.
gonna survive it. Yeah.
But I think it's actually a little bit more subtle about the confrontation between Tony Cap. This is the scene I saw at Walmart that ruined high definition for me. It's just a dude in a plastic suit. Spoiler warning. It's just a dude in a plastic suit. It's not real. But no, I think it's a little bit more subtle. I think a lesser filmmaker may have like when Tony's making the sacrifice, have that conversation play back over in audio or something. It doesn't,
Oh yeah, you're
and they
right. That's
don't
a good
address it
point.
after either. There's no like Cap's not like, oh well, you really proved me wrong. You would lay on the wire for
I
another
guess when
guy.
I said it's obvious, what I mean is the whole like he looks like he's dead thing. But you know what? They don't drag it on as long as I remembered. Like he's laying there for a second, and everybody's kind of wondering if he'll make it. They don't try to make us think he's dead, because then Hulk roars real quick, and then he wakes up, and also Hulk caught him, and you wouldn't do like a catch like that if he wasn't gonna make it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. At first, when I first saw it, I was like, they're trying to make us think that maybe he died. I don't know that they are.
No, I don't think they are at all.
I think it's just you linger on it for a second, I don't know that. I don't know. You could call it a tease, I suppose. But I think it's more just, how is he? Not is he dead, but like how is he?
This is a really cool shot. This is a
Yep.
comic book
Again,
shot.
they're posing for a picture that nobody took.
I don't care because that's an opening splash page from a comic book.
Yes,
No,
it
it's
is.
no, it's great. I love money shots like that. I'm totally cool with them. There's one I love at the end of X2, where they're in the president's office,
Oh yeah.
and it's like that. Although, I mean, this one's 8 times cooler, but
My
that's
favorite thing about that shot too is like Hawkeye's the one that's like standing there like threatening Loki like a bow and arrow is gonna do anything to a god.
well, they have to put him in the center to remind us that he's in this movie. I mean, I know he gets a lot of stuff to do in that fight, but it's sort of like okay, everybody, Hawkeye's part of the team, just in case you weren't sure.
Yeah.
He's
He
totally
matters.
part of the team.
Give me a break.
So I'm not sure how anybody could think that the Avengers thing is a hoax. Like, I just don't understand how that could even happen.
I love this mouth guard thing that they have on Loki.
Yeah.
It's just there's something really aesthetically cool. Oh hey, there's that girl again. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
That,
keeps
that's
coming
got to
back,
be
I
what's
told you.
driving people crazy. She's, yeah, that's okay.
I didn't even
All right.
notice till people pointed that, or till you pointed out
Yep.
just now this viewing.
Also, she vaguely looks like she's wearing a Ghostbuster suit.
Oh,
Oh man,
just
that's how we're
just
crossing over. Patton Oswalt's gonna bring them in.
just
Don't cross the streams.
hey, this is actually the second time Patton Oswalt's been in a comic book thing. He was in Blade 3.
I think he's in even something else, but I'm not sure
Oh,
what.
is he?
The
Well,
thing I was referencing, have you guys seen his filibuster where he like
Yes,
describes the
yes.
plot of Star Wars Episode 7 and like he crosses over Marvel with Star Wars and
And
That's-
something
Clash of the
else.
Titans. Clash of the Titans
he
he
just-
crosses over it with too.
Is he a giant? Is Patton Oswalt like a giant nerd?
Oh
he
yeah.
is. It's awesome.
Oh yeah,
This
Patton Oswalt is a
filibuster he
huge
did,
nerd.
it's on Parks and Recreation, which is the show that Chris Pratt is originally. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he was on for a long time. And Patton Oswalt does this filibuster in a courtroom that's all off the top of his head. That's like all Star Wars and Marvel stuff. It's fantastic.
It's because it is a they have a stupid law that's still on the books that citizens are allowed to filibuster.
yeah.
Well, I'd take advantage of that too.
I want to mention here before the movie's over. Joss Whedon also cares about the Iron Man armor because he made a point to bring back the circle because he hates the triangle chest piece.
Yeah,
So-
I heard in an interview he said the triangle is a word.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could say that, so I just said he thinks it's stupid.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing that was always silly to me about the triangle was just because of the way they made it a plot point in Iron Man 2, where it seemed like congratulations, Tony Stark, you've created a new element, and the secret was a different shape.
Well, and in Iron Man 3, every armor has like a completely different, like there's rectangles and squares, and which is kind of how it is in the comics. There's no rhyme or reason for what his chest piece looks like.
Yeah. I just
But I
chuckled a
also
little bit.
prefer the circle. If
I
anyone's
just
asked.
chuckled a little bit at the subtitles of my DVD. It said triumphant music playing when the scene started.
It is triumphant. I would agree with that. It's weird that the subtitles are like reviewing the music, but that sounds like a thing that
it's
you'd
funny
say if
because
you
that's
were
what
making a critique of it. But all right,
that's what the subtitles for Parks and Rec says on Netflix when it cuts to their theme song. It says triumphant
Oh, really?
music plays.
all right. So yay, that was fun. Yay.
Yeah.
I had a great time talking about this movie with you guys. I noticed a lot more things than I had before.
I feel like I appreciate it and like it more.
Yeah, me too. Although, I am still confident in saying that I think Marvel has already completely topped it.
I think Winter Soldier
a better
and Iron
movie.
Man 3 are better.
I think Winter Soldier is a better movie, and I think that I mean, you guys aren't necessarily going to be with me on this, but I think I like Guardians a tad more
Well,
I
that's
don't.
fair.
I like Guardians a lot,
as
but I don't.
as a team building movie. But
Like I said,
maybe
there's
it's just-
a pure like geek enjoyment thing that I get out of
But
this.
but I get that out of that movie, and that's because I'm such a science fiction guy.
Yeah,
No,
I
and that's
guess.
completely fair.
You know, so that is more my thing, I guess, than
Yeah.
this. And I wouldn't have expected that. I'm a big superhero guy, but I think I am a smidge more of a sci-fi guy over a superhero, and that is a quirky, almost like, well, not quite Hitchhiker, but like it's got the same some of those Hitchhiker sensibilities.
Oh, absolutely.
And so,
Right.
for me, that's a me thing.
And that's the great thing about Marvel Studios, right? Is we can all have different genre tastes and rank these films differently, but they're all so completely different where you can make an argument as to which one
Some of us
goes
can
on.
appreciate the brilliance of 80s buddy cop movies.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't like Guardians as much as you do, Cap. I like that movie a lot. I think I like
Yeah,
this movie
same
a
here.
smidge more. I like this movie a smidge more, but because that's in your wheelhouse, Marvel made a movie for you, and I think that's great about what they're trying to do with these movies. And here is Cap's favorite scene of the movie.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. I love it. It's not now. It's not as big of a deal now that I've seen Thanos actually like have dialogue in another thing. But oh boy, I still get giddy when I see this, just because I think it's a really cool reveal. Just get I don't know, just getting to see it. Now the problem, of course, is that you gotta be us to appreciate this.
I remember
it is all set up.
I remember
You
leading
know,
up to this, people saying that the after credit scene was Thanos, and I was like, "There's no way they're going to do that. That's too obscure.
people
No,
aren't
they're
gonna know
not
what it
going to do
is,
that."
and they did it.
Yeah,
I yelled
And it was
Thanos in the theater when this came on. I was like, Thanos! All my friends
and
laughed at me. They won't let me live it down, but
here's the thing,
proud of it.
I was not surprised, of course, that Thanos was up there, because as soon as I saw the staircase, I was like, oh boy, are they doing what I think they're doing? Like, I thought there was a possibility Thanos was there the whole time. What I didn't think was that they'd show him to us.
right.
But I did the whole movie think he was in the background.
It's so
Or hope he was, anyway. That's
That
exciting.
was the
But yeah,
Beyonder the whole time.
that would have been sad. That was it was such a surprising choice, though, because a lot of people were like, oh, okay, random purple face guy.
I heard a
Okay.
lot of people saying that they thought he was Hellboy, which I
What?
still don't understand.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Some of my friends thought that. They were like, "Is Hellboy in Marvel? What is this?"
Okay, I'm not gonna be a fanboy and roll my eyes, but
You're gonna
Hellboy
put
you
is
your
guys
prayers
red,
on
and
this.
Thanos is purple.
luckily you can't see me rolling my eyes. Well, the thing is, I just love Infinity Gauntlet.
No, and
I
that's
know,
fair.
I know.
Oh, it's great.
Eventually we'll actually move past Infinity Gauntlet. It's gonna take 8 years, but at some point,
And then you'll
I
move
will
on
no longer-
to Infinity War and Infinity Crusade and
I
Warlock
think
and the Infinity Watch. There's so much
think we'll-
infinity for you to enjoy.
Hey, since we have like another 25 minutes to talk through these credits, no, I'm kidding. Let me ask you that: do you think Warlock has the potential to be in this?
Oh,
Oh,
I
it's
think,
officially been announced. He's in Guardians 2.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
I'm so
if
excited.
you paid attention, I didn't catch this because I didn't know
Oh,
this.
sorry for not paying attention.
No, but I guess when you go to the collectors, there's this what do you call it? Like hive. And I guess that's what Warlock sleeps in. And when you at the after the credit scene, spoilers, where it's Howard the Duck, that's not actually what the teaser is. The teaser is, if you look in the background, it's open.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
sure you
the
can
way
find pics
said that,
online if you type it in.
I really thought you were making fun of me the way you said that, because it said like, well, if you pay attention.
No, because I didn't get it either, because I don't know Warlock. I know Warlock as the guy that stands there and then tells Silver Surfer now.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
with
I
you.
hope they
I haven't
go-
read a ton of Adam Warlock stuff, just
But they
Infinity
just put out a good chunk of it, including the Avengers annual with the big Thanos story with Jim Starlin. I'm going to pick that up and read that stuff.
I'll review it at some point. I've got all the Warlock and the Infinity Watch stuff.
Well,
and
no,
all
this
that.
is older stuff. This is Warlock from the 70s. This is the
Oh,
original Warlock run.
Going back that far, cool.
Yeah, with
I'm
the
really-
original
But I'm saying I
big
have all the
Thanos
aftermath
story.
I'm
stuff,
really
yeah.
excited
Okay.
because Marvel's doing a miniseries. It's coming out in, I think in like a
Hunt
month or
for
so.
Thanos?
Hulk versus Thanos by Jim Starlin. I'm buying the crap of that.
What?
I told you about that, Cap.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I told you.
Oh,
Hey,
I don't remember
Starlin's
that.
doing a Hulk versus Thanos. Because
Well,
Starlin
I know
only writes Thanos.
I know he put out a like one shot hardcover graphic novel that they didn't publish in issues, but I haven't bought that yet.
I really want to read that. I've heard good
I
things.
do too. I read the teaser, the 5 or 6 page teaser, and it was great.
But he
I mean, it
also
was very
did.
old school.
He also did like a Thanos annual.
Yep, that was good.
Starlin's just really rolling in it.
Well, I'm glad he's come back to do stuff because obviously, now's the time. People want to know who Thanos is.
Yeah, well, and it's nice
And
that
we're getting a lot of it right now, and I feel like we kind of have that thing we have with a lot of characters where there's a couple of different Thanoses running around right now. You know what I mean? Like, whenever he's characterized, sometimes he's super serious, and sometimes he's like that fun, really full of himself version that we got from Starlin.
Well,
we talked about that when we reviewed the Jason Aaron Origin mini.
Which I love.
I was gonna say you talked up the Ghost Rider Killers Thanos book, and
the Ghost Rider. Next time I see him, I'm gonna tell him you said that. You're like, I got a buddy who will only refer to you as the Ghost Rider Killer.
But yeah, I do intend to read his Thanos book. I've heard a lot of good things about it, so
it's really good. You should check it out at some point.
I also, read Infinity Gauntlet at a young age, so Thanos is also imprinted in my brain.
Yeah, it just left an impression on me. The whole thing with death.
My brain looks like Thanos' chin. It's got the same indents.
Oh wow, that's creepy, dude.
Although sometimes people are like, is that a Skrull chin brain? And I'm like, no, it's Thanos.
Did you have to go to the doctor once and then they x-rayed you and they were like, what's wrong with your brain?
I read Infinity Gauntlet, I was like 7, I can't.
See, and these are probably going to be fighting words, but not a controversial or a surprising opinion.
Are you going to say you like Darkseid? Or are you going to say you like Thanos?
I like Thanos more than I like Darkseid.
Oh, everybody does.
Yeah.
No, there's some people that like Darkseid more, I think.
No, not everybody. Although you gotta realize, Dan, that you said these are fighting words, but you're talking to a guy who made a whole 15-minute video.
Yeah, I mean,
about
I'm just saying in general,
how much
comic book people,
Have you ever seen Eric's video on that though? Eric did a video where he was like, "Darkseid totally sucks."
I forgot I did that.
He did. He was like, Darkseid. Nothing has ever been interesting. Nothing's ever been done with him, and he's got no personality, and he's really boring.
No, it's he has no motivation. He has no goal, or he does have a goal. He has no motivation.
See, I've never read the Jack Kirby New God stuff, but I would like.
It's a little rough to read because Jack Kirby's not a writer, but there's some really cool visuals and ideas.
Oh, interesting.
Here's the joke that everybody thought they were so funny for repeating.
And Chris
till now, people are still thinking they're the first person to repeat this joke.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, I thought it was really funny in the theater. I got sick of hearing people talk about it.
Yeah, it's such like a funny little thing. It doesn't.
It's kind of more fun if nobody's talking about it. Although something I hadn't really noticed before is they set that setup a little bit to make it look like it was just after the city got messed up. So there's stuff messed up all over.
Oh yeah, the place. Yeah. It's clearly in between scenes.
That's kind of fun.
Have you guys ever heard the background behind that scene? How they had to shoot it so many times that Chris Hemsworth threw up because he ate so much shawarma. And
oh no, I thought you were going to say the whole thing where it comes from Xander from Buffy. He made the shawarma joke in his audition for Buffy.
No, it wasn't that. And Chris Hemsworth threw up, and then Evans had a beard because he was shooting a different movie at the time.
And that's why his hand's over his
Yeah, exactly.
Weird. I didn't know that. I wonder why they had to shoot it so many times. Seems like that would be a really easy thing to get.
I think
because people kept laughing. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, anyway, that's it for us on our 2.5 hour Avengers commentary. We made it through, guys! Yay! We got through it. And Dan, you're right, or whoever it was that said it at the beginning. It's been 2.5 hours. But this is a movie that does not feel like it's that long.
It kind of, I actually watching it now kind of makes me want to go and watch it just to watch it.
Where you don't have to spend the entire time talking about nothing but Iron Man armor.
Well, no, I'll be thinking about it the whole time. But,
I know you will. But he'll be making pie charts and graphs and.
I could honestly probably do that with Iron Man's armor, but and my volume's turned almost all the way down, so I didn't hear most of it. So.
Bum, 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 bum. Well, then you needed the subtitles to tell you that was
triumphant music. Yeah, I didn't know.
Everybody, thanks as always for listening. We sure appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed our commentary. Looking forward to reading your comments, and we'll be back with you again with lots of other stuff. Thank you both for joining me. This was a lot of fun to do with both of you guys, and we should do this again. The three of us, I think, you know what? I enjoyed the dynamic of the three of us almost as much as I enjoyed the dynamic of the 6 Avengers.
Oh, I did too. It was a good time.
Yeah, no, I thought it came out really good.
So anyway, this was Captain Logan and Dan Torrey.
Hey, I'll see you guys next time.
That's what you say when you open a video. and Brown Coat Eric.
I won't see you next time because I can't see through the computer.
What is seeing?
Bye.